right, good evening. Call to order the City Commission meeting for Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Let's go ahead and stand. The pastor who usually does the invocation wasn't able to make it this evening, so we're going to pass on that and go straight to the Pledge of Allegiance. So, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So tonight's the first item on the agenda is a recognition of the good citizen campers for summer 2021.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Robinson and Commissioners. This summer, the Recreation Parks and Arts Department has been able to serve over 600 campers weekly in our full and half-day camp programs. In addition to providing the children enrolled fun and structured activities each day that create memorable experiences for them, staff also strive to build lessons about character traits into their daily activities. Tonight, I am pleased to recognize 5 campers that have been selected by their camp directors for being citizen campers. These youth were selected for displaying positive character traits throughout the summer. Our first camper is Jace Link from Camp Funshine. Jace is always the first one to help a friend in need. He helps others clean up messes, even if he didn't help create it. He will put what he is building aside to help a friend. He demonstrates that others' needs are important, many times over his own needs. Jace does a great job every day following directions the first time they are given and encourages friends to do the same. Jace has a servant's heart and loves to help. He is always helping the younger children. He is a good counter and always knows how many children should be in our line, just like a mini counselor. His willingness to serve is out of this world. He has a self-confidence that will lead him far in life. Way to go, Jace. We are so proud of you. And our second camper is Raiden Plummer. Raiden shares with everyone he plays with. Raiden shares with everyone he plays with. He is generous and kind. He makes sure to include others so they do not feel left out. Everyone enjoys being around him. Raiden is thoughtful and cleans up after himself and others throughout the day. He is so impressive to the staff. He follows directions and engages as requested. Raiden is an all-around great kid, and we love having him in our camp as an example to others. Thank you, Raiden, for your kindness and respect you show to others daily. Our third camper is Devin Dahlgren. Devin is a camper that always participates in the scheduled game and shows great sportsmanship from football to kickball, dodgeball to basketball. This kid shows true sportsmanship while playing the game. He treats others in camp with respect, including the camp counselors. He is competitive and always striving to do the best he can. Devin plays fair and is a great athlete. We have enjoyed having Devin in our camp. One day he will go on to do something great in sports, and I see team captain in his future. Our last 2 campers were not able to be with us this evening, but I would still like to read the write-ups that were submitted by their directors as they are watching from home. Kimberly Kajerski from Nature Camp. Kimberly shows respect daily to her fellow campers and counselors. She is always prepared for camp, following directions and on task. She is a great example for other campers. She stays focused throughout the activities, and you will often see Kimberly finding ways to include children who have been left out of an activity. She is always prepared for the field trip with her camp shirt, bug spray, sunblock, swimsuit, and of course closed-toed shoes for exploring. Kimberly leads by example. Kim follows the instructions and influences her group to follow suit. Nature Camp is all about the outdoors, and Kim is intrigued by an assorted array of reptiles and snakes. Kimberly is an all in and never complains about the heat, just ready for the next adventure. And our our last camper is from Cool Kids Camp. It's Warren Brandt. No matter the situation, Warren is always the one suggesting a solution and the person who wants to create peace. He always has something nice to say about everyone around him. Warren shows great responsibility in camp. If he makes a mistake, he owns up to it. He is very mature and a good example to other campers. Warren has impressed me with his empathy. It's such a great character trait to have and to share. He consoles other campers when they are hurt and makes sure to inform the camp counselor when something has gone wrong. He has exceptional manners and displays good sportsmanship no matter the game we are playing. Warren is joy to have in camp and is sweet to the camp counselors and CITs.
So normal.
Our 2021 Citizen Campers.
Next up on the agenda would be swearing in of the police officers. We're going to let some of these folks move out before we bring some others in, so just give us a second here.
All right, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to bring 6 of the newest Largo police officers tonight before you for their swearing in. They're in the midst of their training, but on the home stretch, and they'll be hitting the road here in about 2.5 weeks. So I'm going to start with Sam Demicki. Sam, step forward, please. Sam was born and raised in Brandon, Florida, and she graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree from the University of Tampa. Sam was a competitive dancer for 20 years and is very excited to begin a new career at the Largo Police Department. Sam enjoys dance, the beach, spending time with family and friends in her downtime. Anthony Miller. Anthony. Anthony is from Miami. He played football and studied political science at New Mexico Highlands University. Graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's degree. He is a father to Anthony Miller II. His hobbies include fishing, chess, and spending time with family. Thank you, Anthony. Brendan Dilla. Brendan's 32 years old, married with 2 stepchildren. He has over 10 years of law enforcement experience. Half was in New Jersey and half with Colorado. His associate's degree in criminal justice, former field training officer, SWAT operator. Brendan enjoys boating, fishing, golfing, going to the beach, hunting, and vacations with the family. Thank you, Brendan. Cheston Toller. Cheston moved to Florida from West Virginia, where he previously worked in law enforcement for 3 years. Prior to that, he worked for nonprofits. He's married with 3 kids. He enjoys coaching youth soccer, traveling, history, and family adventures. Cheston, thank you. James Lina. James is originally from New York, 3rd generation police officer, 8th police officer in his family. So you didn't have much of a choice for what career you chose, did you? James enjoys weightlifting, walking with his dog, and reading. Thank you, James. And last but certainly not least, Quantica Anderson. Quantica is a Florida A&M alumni, born and raised in Tampa, Florida. Recently graduated the academy, and she's honored to start a career path with the Largo Police Department. She enjoys cycling, date nights. I know her date's over there. Sorry, she put it in there. I don't know if that's a hint. Just saying. Traveling and spending time with her family and friends. Thank you, Clark.
My turn. Okay, guys, raise your right hand. I, and state your name,
I,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll support and protect
that I'll support and protect
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign,
domestic or foreign,
and that I'll bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
that I am entitled to hold office
that I am entitled to hold office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
that I'll faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
all of the duties
all the duties
of the office of, and state your office,
in the office of the Police Department
of the city of Largo,
of the city of Largo,
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I will enter.
Congratulations.
All right, if I could have the family members that are going to come up and do the pinning of the badges, please come on up. And don't worry, we have the fire department on standby in case anybody gets a little poke. Please. There's a free helper.
She pinning on the baby?
He's proud.
Look at that. Family badge.
All right, let's give the family members a round of applause for getting that done successfully. Congratulations, you all. I'm gonna start you off. Congratulations. Step that way. Great job.
Congratulations. Welcome to Largo. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Welcome.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. It's Sam, right?
Thanks, sir. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right. Next up, we have the Florida Water Professionals Month proclamation.
Whereas the Florida Water Pollution Control Operators Association, organized in 1940, is a nonprofit trade organization that promotes sustainability of Florida's water utility industry through workforce development to protect the health of Florida's citizens and to preserve the state's water resources. And whereas this organization offers water and wastewater treatment plant operator and water distribution operator training courses required for the state of Florida's operator licenses, 8 voluntary certification programs, and continuing education programs for operator license renewal. And whereas this organization, in recognizing the importance of the Florida statutes and administrative code that regulate the water industry, acts as liaison between the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and industry personnel. And whereas the Florida Water and Pollution Control Operators Association recognizes all those who have played a significant part in operating and maintaining drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems in Florida by celebrating Florida Water Professionals Month, which applauds their constant efforts to protect our health and environment. And whereas water professionals are often emergency responders during storms and other catastrophic events, working to ensure safe drinking water and safe disposal of wastewater for our communities. Now, therefore, I, Jamie Robinson, Vice Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2021 as Florida Water Professionals Month in the City of Largo and extend greetings and best wishes to all observing Florida Water Professionals Month.
Wow, exciting night for us in the industry, huh? One thing I'm sitting in for Irvin tonight, so I just want to read a little statement that he wrote. The City of Largo staff remain committed to our water resources sustainability through staff collaboration and operations, engineering, and budgeting as support for stormwater management, wastewater collection and treatment, and reclaimed water staff. This also includes our customer service staff. All of these guys, they all do a great job. I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago when we received the collection system award. These guys work so hard and diligent in the middle of the night when things need to be taken care of. I just want to thank them all for their hard work, and we thank you all for this month, and the state of Florida as well. So, thank you.
Now, question, if a citizen wanted to come out and do a tour of the plant, they can do that?
Yeah, you can just call out to the plant. They can schedule the operators. We can make it happen.
Awesome. I think that's a great opportunity for many residents that would like to participate, and thank you all. So thank you.
Okay, next up, we will have the recognition of Kim Adams, our finance director, for receiving the Florida Government Finance Officers Association Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm very proud to announce that, yes, Kim Adams, our finance director and chief financial officer, has received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Florida Government Finance Officers Association, FGFOA. This award recognizes and honors a finance officer who has made a lasting and worthwhile contribution to the citizens of Florida through their efforts and dedication in the performance of their duties on a local level, and who has served the FGFOA in its efforts to enhance the profession. This is an award that's given annually, but only in those years where someone is deemed deserving of the award. And certainly there's no one more deserving than Mr. Adams. Kim has been a member of FGFOA for 34 years. He's been very active in numerous committees with the organization. He was one of the founders of the local chapter and was the local chapter's first president. He has taught at numerous finance and accounting seminars over the years, including many for local officials through the Florida League of Cities. He's also taught accounting and finance at the university level. Kim can't just get enough accounting and finance. He's been employed by the city for over 30 years. Of course, I'm one of the few people around here that's been here longer than Kim, and I'm proud to say that I knew Kim before he worked for the city. He was one of the, he worked for the accounting firm that performed the city's annual financial audit for, 3 or 4 years. And when the finance director position became available, he applied for it. I was a member of that selection committee, and it was one of the best decisions we ever made. So I just want to thank him for his service to this community and to the city of Largo. And besides just being a great accountant and finance director, he's just a great all-around person and a real credit to the Largo employee family.
So I just want to say real quick while Kim's still here that I don't want to speak for the entirety of the commission here, but I can certainly say for myself that when I was first elected I guess 8 or 10 years ago now, I spent a lot of time in Kim's office trying to figure out how to do this job, because a big part of what we do, obviously, is the budget. So Kim was very helpful in helping me understand how that whole, how it works and how everything comes together and how it, so I want to say thank you, Kim. And I can also speak for multitude of elected officials throughout the state of Florida that Kim has helped with the Florida League of Cities. So it very much deserved reward, Kim, and congratulations. Next up, we have citizens' comment. If you have anything to speak about that's on the regular agenda, please wait until that item comes up. Diane, do we have any citizens' comment?
Yes, I have several cards, and the first two, let me just move this, came in under public comment at largo.com. This one is from Gay Gentry. She writes, Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to participate with comments by email. I had planned to attend in person, but my children asked that I not participate at this time in the old-fashioned normal way because of the Delta variant. I share with you the following, which I learned the hard way. As elected members of the City Commission, you are delegated to lead by indicating your support or non-support of the actions of all of the departments. You legislate, and decisions you reach are administered by the employees from top to bottom in an orderly chain of command. However, that does not mean you don't ask questions. It is in the asking of questions where your real power lies. Help me understand is a powerful opening to any inquiry, and you are the holder of the inquiry key almost in the proverbial velvet-gloved hand. So I encourage you to ask as many questions as you can to maintain high morale from top to bottom across the board. You certainly don't want a virus to seep into the morale of a body of employees who are the best of the best, certainly in Pinellas County, if not the state. I sense that this might be happening. The next one came from anonymous employee. He writes, or she writes, I urge you to censure and or formally reprimand Largo City Administration, specifically the Largo City Manager and Assistant City Manager, for the reprehensible message sent to city staff and partners regarding Ms. Joan Byrne's termination. The message detailed private personnel information protected by the Privacy Act of 1974, specifically in regards to the details of an employee's terminations. Courts generally have found that intra-agency disclosures to employees that do not have a need for the record in the performance of their duties are outside the scope of the need-to-know disclosure exception. Ms. Byrne is well within her legal rights to take civil action for this alone, and many hope she does. Ms. Palak is no stranger to civil action from past employees in her previous role for profoundly similar reasons. Further, as city administration continues to assert that they envision the City of Largo as a high-performance organization, one must pause to consider how the unceremonious termination and subsequent message disparaging her character sent directly to RPA staff, including those on the front lines, instills trust and confidence in city administration to provide the leadership, integrity, and transparency necessary for an organization to function at the highest levels. Surely they were aware that the morale of their most public-facing departments would be affected by their actions and caution taken at every turn. Or perhaps not, as they build for themselves an gregariously conspicuous playground on West Bay while making moves to upend internal city structures without consulting those who would be most affected. Respectfully submitted by an anonymous employee. And the first card we have is Pat Burke.
Before that, Commissioner Finger has a question.
Thank you. I guess, can Attorney Zimmett explain for those of us, such as myself, who are not clear as to what was just referred to in that email, as far as, it said, what, 1974? Was it a law, or just, can you just explain what that was?
I wish I could explain it, but I've never heard of such a law. I've never heard of that comment. I've never heard of any restriction as described in that email. I don't believe it exists. So I can't explain what the email writer was thinking or talking about.
Is there any more details? That if I understand, that email sounded as if personal.
As I understood, the email was saying that city administration cannot explain the reasons for disciplinary action, and I've never I'm not aware of any law that addresses whether a city administration can address the reasons for disciplinary action. In fact, many times when an employee has been disciplined, they ask for the reasons for the discipline, and if they feel like it's not been adequately described to them, they'll make complaints on the other end. So I've never heard of any statute or law or case that says city administration can't explain the reasons for disciplinary action.
If I understand that was, and maybe that was what that individual was trying to say as part of the law that exists or not, is that personal information was told to other members?
I don't know exactly what they're referring to was disclosed, so I'd have to see that to know.
Sure.
I mean, the only specific law that I could even think of is one we're probably all familiar with, which is HIPAA, which prohibits the disclosure of medical information that we may have about employees without the employee's permission. That's the only one I can think of that even applies to personnel records. There are certain records that are exempt under public records law, but that wouldn't apply to this type of information.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, so Diane, next up, I'm sorry,
Is Pat Burke.
thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, Vice Mayor. My name is Patricia Burke, and I live locally here in Florida, 45 years. And I'm here tonight to speak about the ignominious firing of Joan Byrne. I've worked and I've known Joan for 22 years. Never, ever have I witnessed her to be anything but the perfect professional leader. She and I have been on numerous boards together, including lots of her staff, and I can tell you they have always showed her the most utmost respect. In firing her, the staff will suffer the consequences. I question the reason for her dismissal and believe that this commission should investigate this further. And I thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Next speaker is Curtis Holmes.
Vice Mayor, Commissioners, good evening, one and all. I've been spending some time reviewing the plans for the new City Hall, and I think you should really consider canceling that whole project, and I'll tell you why. I voted in favor of pursuing this project when I was on the commission. I attended a lot of the meetings with the developers. And upon looking at it now, if I could retract my vote, I would do it if I could change it. But it doesn't really matter because you got to figure out the needs. What are the needs of the city? And I have heard the story about how we need more space for staff in this building. I want you to stop and consider when COVID was going hot and heavy, this building was abandoned. And everything kept running just fine. You want to spend over $50 million on a new city hall. Well, the question is, what would it cost to fix this building? When I was on the commission, we had contractors come in to get a price on reinforcing the exterior of the building to make it hurricane resistant. And it was $12 million to fix it. They had a discussion about fixing the inside of the thing because at that time, IT's mainframes were up there and the floors were buckling. Well, the mainframes aren't there anymore. They're over in Central Park. Well, what would it cost to fix the inside of this building? And it comes out at roughly $12 million again, because you've got a lot of wasted space in this building. You know, and I have been told that you need the space for extra personnel. I don't believe that. For one thing, Largo's as big as it's going to get. You cannot change the boundaries of the city. Secondly, if you look at the departments, what departments will have to be expanded for the increase in population? Not environmental services, they're already doing 135,000 customers, and you're expanding that plant as is. Solid waste, I mean, Public Works, they don't need any more, they've got their own space anyway. So you go through the whole thing. Parks Department, you're really not going to get any more parks. So realistically, you're talking about the administration. But if you're not going to go into a hiring binge, why do you need more space for the administration of the City of Largo? Police Department's got their own building, so they're out of the mix. Fire departments, they don't really need any more than they currently have. So I'm asking you, reconsider spending this $50 million, it's over $50 million on this thing. Spend half that amount of money to fix this building, and take the money that's left over. We have fire stations in desperate need to be fixed, and they're about $3 million apiece. You'll have enough money left over that you could do all of the repairs that these fire department, that the fire departments need right now. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Penny Janowski.
Good evening. I'm going to slip this off. I am Penny Janowski, 316 Velma Drive, Largo. I've been a member of the Largo Recreation Parks and Arts Board for 22 years. Prior to serving on the Rec Board, I taught classes for Largo Recreation for 36 years. Right after I retired, Kathy Santa asked me to come on to the Largo Recreation and Parks Board. A couple of years after that, she retired, and we got the outstanding Joan Byrne. Joan took over an already outstanding recreation department from Kathy. She has continued building a legacy of excellence and quality for our department. She has brought dozens of new innovative programs for all age groups, kindergarten through the senior programs. She has increased the variety and quality of our programs at the Central Parks Performing Arts Center, AKA the Largo Cultural Center. Joan has made our parks a showcase for our city and the county, for that matter, and the other counties that come over to see our beautiful parks. In the letter our board received announcing the firing of Joan Byrne, that the department needs new leadership to support innovation and change? Give me a break. Largo Recreation, Arts, and Parks has been on the cutting edge in the development of new recreational programs for many, many years. This makes me shake when I talk about it. I feel very passionate about this. This has been verified year after year, as under the direction of Joan, our RPA department has received 6 Agency of Excellence awards, more top agency awards than any other department in the state. More importantly, our department was the first accredited one in the state of Florida, one of only 22 in the United States of America. Joan also received the coveted Lifetime Achievement Award from the State Department of Recreation and Parks. She was nominated by Henry Schubert, city manager, and received the Chamber of Commerce Aspire Award. I feel that firing Joan Byrne is a major loss to the Recreation Department and the city of Largo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Annalise Smith. Oh, she's not here? Okay. After that is Mark Clutho.
Mark Clutho, Largo. Kim Adams getting an award. I always say you have to consider the source. Yeah, the backslapping, glad handing here, boy, I'll tell you, always a big hit. Now, look at the headlines. Florida's #1 in the COVID. We have that Delta variant. It's coming on strong. Headlines, only big steps will save Earth. And then here we have, get ready for the climate disasters. Earth's carbon dioxide levels at the highest in 4 million years. A crisis at the iconic Hoover Dam, nation's largest reservoir, sinking to lowest levels ever. Climate scientists warned us, when will we listen? And now, just recently, they're talking about these wildfires creating their own weather. And you see these big floods in Europe that are the biggest since medieval times. Well, what causes that? Dumb buildings like you make. Here's this headline, giving aging buildings a green makeover. Developers are devising ways to retrofit New York's oldest structures to reduce their carbon footprints. They will cut the utility bills by 80%. Now, making a new structure is an easier proposition if you're utilizing all of the high-performance passive solar technology that is available. Not the wrong ways, like at your community center, your library, your rec center. That's what gives you these headlines that I just read. Not halfway measures. And what I've seen of this new City Hall plan, oh, it's pathetic. Really pathetic.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Judy Hall.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Robinson, City Commissioners, City Manager. My name is Judy Hall. I am president of 8 O'Clock Theater, the resident community theater of the Central Park Performing Arts Center. I am also on the board of the Central Park Performing Arts Center Foundation. I have been president of 8 O'Clock Theater for 6 years, and I have been on the board of the Central Park Performing Arts Foundation since 2004, having served as its president for 4 years. During all of this time, I have worked closely with Joan Byrne, and most recently, I have been renegotiating the new contract for the 8 O'Clock Theater with her. I know that Florida is an at-will employer state, meaning that either an employee or an employer can terminate employer for pretty much any type of legal reason without notice. Joan's ability to uphold the role of leadership, including promoting the good of the whole, has always been evident to me in my interactions with her. Neither I, 8 O'Clock Theater, or the Central Park Performing Arts Center Foundation have ever lost confidence or trust in Joan's ability. Joan has always been honest, and she has served the city of Largo with passion and integrity. As Mayor Woody Brown said, Joan has played an integral part in building and maintaining the best recreation program in Pinellas County. Thank you.
Next speaker is Joan Byrne.
Joan Byrne, 700 Starkey Road, Largo. I'm proud of my 22 years in Largo and all that our team accomplished to build community pride. But I am, however, concerned about some fairly disturbing behavior, and I'm blowing the whistle on that. In less than 2 years, a small cadre within the executive management team was given power and influence beyond their title and experience. The trio spends more time with one another, both professionally and socially, than with other staff or citizens, and they consider that sufficient inclusion. They act as one, and they mutually defend one another. They are unencumbered by constraints and can focus on their ideological agenda. They avow diversity, but suppress diversity of opinion. The leader of the cadre, who unfortunately isn't here, the assistant city manager, came to Largo a short time ago with an eerily similar history of widespread public disfavor due to blatant favoritism and retaliation against those who challenged her. The consequences of this go beyond my situation, but they certainly do explain. I wasn't one of the favorites. The claim that I was not on board with the pursuit of a high-performance organization is absolutely preposterous. My department won the state's top agency award 6 times. I was one of the only directors to teach every session of the high-performance organization curriculum to Largo employees. For all the defamation targeted at me, there is not a single example of impedance or insubordination, not even one prior disciplinary action for any reason in 22 years. Even the city manager can't claim a similarly unblemished official record. Achieving a high-performance organization is a reality for me, but just a tool for others. It is a badge of honor to have been fired by hypocrites. It is obvious that I was displaced to deflect attention from the authentic problem of crony management. Did my abrupt and indecent removal serve the interests of Largo, or just those of a few employees doing many other things they just don't want questioned? The commission has an oversight duty. Many of you have known me or worked beside me for the last 22 years. You should ask to see the letter that was widely circulated by the city manager. Many have reached out and stated that they found it slanderous, but you should not rely on either my observations or any rebuttal of these by the persons wanting to get rid of me or by those now too timid to speak up. An independent management audit is required. This must be conducted in a way which penetrates the intimidation and secrecy that exist. This is not my farewell, and I'm sure you're sad to hear that. I'll be around to pursue restoration of a genuine high-performance organization. We had one until a few turned that reality into a personal power tool. My departure is not the solution to the problem. I'm not a victim, but a whistleblower to be protected and heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Patrick Byrne.
1 second, Mr. Byrne. Commissioner Finger has a question.
A couple of questions. Did we receive the same letter that was circulated to everyone in the city?
Yes, everyone received the exact same letter.
The one she's talking about?
The one.
Everyone received the exact same letter.
Okay. Can either City Attorney Zimmett or City Manager Schubert explain our role as a commission when it comes to employee, to this situation, basically, how decisions in personnel, what happened, you know what I'm saying, where we are. Like,
I understand.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to ask. So the way a city manager form of government works is the city commission supervises directly, in our case, 3 employees. the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. Under the charter, the city manager is given authority for supervising all other employees, which means he has the right, within the rules established by the city commission, and that's the personnel rules, and ultimately, I guess, the budget too, to hire and fire, to discipline, to hire people into certain positions, to organize departments and whatnot, so long as it's consistent with the general policies that are established by this commission by way of the adoption of the budget or the personnel rules. But this commission has no role in the discipline of city employees. Your interaction is with Mr. Schubert. If you're not happy with Mr. Schubert's employment, you have certain rights that you can, pursuant to the agreement that's been entered into between the city and the city manager. It's not working. Okay. Sorry. Your relationship is with the city manager. So if you're unhappy with things that the city manager is doing, then you can take action against the city manager. But otherwise, you don't have a role in the relationship between the city manager and the employees that report to the city manager.
And what about the assistant city manager? That's still going to be under city manager?
Yes, the assistant city manager reports to the city manager.
Correct.
Does not report to the commission.
Okay. Thank you. Just as explanation as we're listening and going through the process. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Byrne, 700 Strikey Road, Largo, Florida. First of all, preamble, other attorneys disagree with the opinion that Mr. Zimmett just offered you. I can state that. But first, let me just say that I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to praise Caesar, but to bury her. In fact, I want to address you specifically and not talk about Joan. I'm happy to be able to claw back some of the 65,000 hours she devoted to the city. 65,000. Second, if you follow the news, you may know that governing boards can't ignore and must protect whistleblowers. This commission has been told that favoritism and retaliation have infected the city, as they reportedly did another city under very similar circumstances not long ago. Joan did not ask for her job back tonight, did she? She asked for an independent inquiry into these management problems. The problems go beyond how they affected her. The problems persist after her. Third, however you view Joan, and whatever thoughts you have on your firing prerogatives of any around here, the way this was done grossly violated the city's own values, processes, and precedent. Joan is owed a formal apology and a retraction of the defamatory letters made in that email. This is not for Joan's pride, but for confidence that all employees in the city of Largo must have that they work for an organization which will treat them fairly and respectfully. Fourth, Joan was fired to conceal. Still, it is worth you all reading about high-performance organization principles and to see the hypocrisy of those professing it here. It's also worth reading those documents and the literature, the management and professional literature surrounding it. You will find one 300-page review of the evidence, which was titled Hope or Hype. And this concluded there was little proof of efficacy for these high-minded ideals. Finally, you should know that Joan planned to retire in June of 2022. I know that because I do the budgets, okay? Reasonable and honest management would have avoided negative publicity, the problems of disorderly transition, and the cost of severance with a conversation and a calendar. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to positive actions on what this situation demands minimally of you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker is Sharon, I don't want to butcher your name. Beckety.
Can I ask after him?
Yeah, sorry, Sharon, can you, excuse me?
I have a question.
Commissioner
for
Finger
them.
has a question.
Sorry, thank you. Again, probably for Attorney Zimmett, can you explain what the process is as far as the statements that were just made?
Can we get through the citizens' comment, and then can you just write your questions down, and then before we get into the next section, we can just go through that all, or maybe we can do it towards the end of the meeting?
How many more cards? Yeah, I guess.
I'm not sure how many more cards we have, but as a trying to be efficient here
I understand.
and let the folks speak, I would appreciate if we can just go. Let's get through the questions, and if you have any questions about the comments, we can just do those at the end.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Thank
I'm
you.
Sharon Feckety, 135 Kilgore Drive, Largo, Florida. And I don't have anything written down, and I just wanted to speak from my heart because I'm really, really just embarrassed to be on the board, the advisory board right now for Parks and Rec, knowing that our astute leader, Joan Byrne, has been terminated without any opportunity to understand why she would be terminated after having only positive reviews and awards. So instead of responding to all of the text messages I got about gossip about what was going on in the city of Largo, I deal with that enough. I work with doctors. I called the city manager myself, and I asked if I was going to read something in the newspaper that Joan might have said about, I don't know, something inappropriate like racism or maybe about equality, because my God, why on earth would Joan Byrne be terminated by the city of Largo? So I really just called because I was trying to understand. The email that I received talked about transparency, and I don't really think there's much transparency happening. Joan Byrne is the reason that I have been involved in the city of Largo's playing unplugged since inception, just what the doctor ordered. She decided to go to Baltimore not too long ago and follow this wonderful organization that decided to help children get off their phones and play outside like they used to when I was a kid. And we got all of the medical community involved in this fantastic event. And then Joan suggested that if I really wanted to be a business owner in this city, that I should probably find out what's happening in the city. So she encouraged me to join the Citizens Academy, which I joined, and I learned all about the city of Largo because I didn't really have any interest before until Joan Byrne. That's just the truth. I was very busy running a medical practice and then owning my own 2 businesses, which I own today. Then Joan said, you know what, I think, maybe you could be a new candidate for this advisory board that we have for Parks and Rec. You love Parks and Rec. You worked with children for 8 years as the manager of a pediatric practice in Pinellas County. And I have just been so proud of what has been happening with the city that I live in, but only under Joan's direction. And I feel terrible. I feel terrible that anybody would be wronged like that. As an employer, knowing good and well, if you are going to terminate somebody, you allow them an opportunity to know what they've done, and then, not that I think she's done anything, but then offer some type of performance evaluation or plan going forward. So I thank you for your time, and I'm on Team Joan.
Thank you.
The last card is Carola Rinman.
I'm Carola Risman, and I've been in Largo for over 40-some years. I've had a business here. Right now, I'm having a problem where I live. I'm the last house in Largo. My back fence is Bella Bluffs, and the water comes out of Bel Air. They do not have a dip or anything, so the water will run down the hill where there is a creek. It comes around from Indian Avenue all the way down to my corner, which is Victory and West Overbrook, and it floods badly. I have a garden right there. because it's a hill, the grass won't grow because of the trees, so I put big plants and things in there. And if I hadn't had a friend who gave me a whole bunch of cement things to put there, my earth would flush down into the creek. And I've called the city, I've talked to Bel Air, I talked to the county, and everybody tells me I have to go to Largo. It is Largo's problem. I called the engineering, I don't know how many people here in Largo. One guy came out and looked at it, and I haven't seen or heard, or nothing's happened. All they need to do is put a couple more dips onto the Bella Bluffs area so the whole thing won't come down and then come around my street and flush everything. All they need to do is put a couple more dips there so it goes down. I don't think that's too much to ask. I've had cars drive over my grass on the corner, so I put big rocks there so it can't happen anymore. I never complained about it, but this water is really getting bad. It's flushing everything down because the dip is deep. It catches everything. All they need is a couple more dips on the Bella Bluff side, and that won't happen. I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Could you give your name and address to the city clerk? And I would ask the city manager to take a look at this and
I have
report
it.
back to us.
I've got your phone number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Commissioner Finger, for letting us get through that. Yeah, I know you had a couple questions, so feel free.
Yes. My question to Attorney Zimmett is that the individual who spoke before was talking, used the terms whistleblower and some other items. What is that? Again, I'm just asking process, and where does that put us as a commission, or the discussion about an independent investigation? Can you explain that to us?
Well, let me first address the reference to being a whistleblower. Given that essentially that is a veiled threat of litigation against the city, my preference would be not to discuss that in a public meeting. And we can personally discuss this individually at the conclusion of the meeting.
Could you speak up, Mr. Zimmett?
Yeah,
a request for an independent investigation. So the commission does have some authority under the charter to call for an investigation.
I don't think, okay, I'm asking from the perspective of if Joan asks for an independent investigation, does Joan initiate that, or do we? Because I was getting the impression that was coming from Joan's side. But is that something we actually initiate? I'm trying to understand.
I guess I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Can the commission ask for an investigation?
Well, that's what I was saying. Under the charter, you do have some authority to conduct an investigation into the administration's, some aspect of the administration. You do have authority under the charter to conduct investigations.
Okay, does the individual have that right as well?
An individual commissioner?
No. An individual who is a employee.
No.
Okay, so that's incumbent upon us if we want to know further.
If you want to conduct an investigation, the commission as a whole can vote to conduct an investigation.
Okay, thank you. And then and the whistleblower, you were, I guess, going to explain?
Yeah, I said that I would prefer, given that's a veiled threat of litigation against the city, that we discuss that individually after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other cards, Diane?
No, there's no other cards.
Okay, thank you. According to our rules, Commissioner
Carol.
Yes, thank you. I just completely drew a blank. I apologize, Commissioner Carroll. So Commissioner Carroll is attending via Zoom, and so according to our rules, we have to allow him to attend and participate in the meeting. So take a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for attending, Commissioner Carroll. Next up on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yes.
I just want to make sure that the citizens that are leaving, that we'll probably bring this up. We'll probably talk about this at citizens commission comments. So this is not being passed over. So do know it will probably come up at the end of our meeting.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
Okay, so we have with that number 5 passed. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for July 20th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Consent. We have 2 items on consent. Item 7, approval of emergency purchase of 2 Liebert condensers from Air Mechanical and Service Corporation in the amount of $51,890. Item 8, reappointment of Mr. Jose Valdez as a member of the Largo Municipal Police Officers and Firefighters Retirement Plan Board of Trustees.
You've heard the consent docket. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the consent docket without commission discussion, including staff background provided in the commission packets.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next up would be ordinance number 2021-56. Welcome.
Good evening. This is the second reading for ordinance number 2021-56, the revisions to the team member employment guidelines. There are no changes since the first reading, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Ordinance number 2021-56, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, revising the City of Largo team member employment guidelines, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion? Motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-56 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is ordinance number 2021-59.
This is the second and final reading of ordinance number 2021-59, designating minor child play areas within city parks. This ordinance would limit the age of children with using current playgrounds in city parks to 12 and under as recommended by the manufacturer, creating a safe environment for younger children when using the playgrounds. There have been no changes since the first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2021-59, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances to create Section 17-40 to provide for the designation of exclusive minor child play areas within city parks, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
This is a public hearing. Do we have any cards?
I have no cards.
I move to adopt ordinance.
1 second. We have some questions.
Sorry.
Commissioner Girard is up.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to take a couple of minutes here. All right, and I hope you'll bear with me. I've been
Not all night.
All right. I may take all night. I've been considering this ordinance since its first reading and remain opposed for reasons I'd like to share, and then offer an alternative that I hope everyone will find reasonable. This ordinance is a reaction to young teens who from time to time gather at the playground, and while the teams may make the younger children or their parents uncomfortable, I believe this ordinance is premature and counterproductive. I think the city hasn't taken simpler, more constructive steps to resolve the situation, and I fear that the ordinance will lead to unhealthy and unwarranted police interactions with our young people. This ordinance is aimed at young teens who, by design, are at a critical stage in their lives. They're pulling away from parental control, establishing their independence, challenging the rules they were raised by, and developing attitudes they'll take with them into adulthood. I'd hate to see us pass an ordinance that will, and I believe it will, put our kids in adversarial situations with law enforcement, all because they were socializing on playground equipment. And trust me, if we pass the ordinance, especially if we post it at the playgrounds, the police will be called. And I wonder, and I'm glad to see the chief here, I wonder how many Largo officers really want to be dispatched to the playground to tell teens, some only a year older than the facility's age range, to move along. In their development, teens need a place to call their own, a place where they can establish their identities as individuals and secure their understanding and position in the social structure. The playground gives them a place that tethers them to their childhood while they experiment with adulthood. Things like sliding down a slide at the playground and then maybe trying out language that they learned from adults. It's human development. While I agree the playground's the wrong place for them, where else can they go? One thing we can't say is that they have the whole rest of the park. That's just an amorphous response that really gives them nothing. And they need a place that's their own. And we can't point to Bayhead, which is a hike from the middle school, especially in 100-degree weather, and chiefly a skate park and volleyball courts for older people. Next, and this is important, all the signage at the playground, of all the signage, things like promotional banners and a big notice that forbids solicitation, the entrance signs place the age range under the guidelines in small type at the very bottom, where it's hardly likely to be noticed. Why pass an ordinance before you've even made clear who the playground's for? So why don't we first post the clear signage that should have been there all along? The playground's for children ages 2 to 12. Well, let's say so in a way that there's no missing it. Then let's create a place in the park that's reserved for teens. Make it one of the shelters or somewhere else that's in the shade, maybe with a couple of tables where they can gather and be themselves. And let's give them some equipment, maybe for exercise or adult swings. Let's ask them what they like. Maybe the Youth Advisory Council could get involved in this and give us some recommendations. In May, we approved $168,500 for new playground equipment at Dasco Park. That's great. I'm glad to see it happen. So let's do something for our teens. They aren't vandals, they aren't marauders, they're our children. So let's include them and not exclude them. It's a powerful tool to ask kids what they want rather than tell them what they can't have. The Largo Public Library has a teen center and a tween center and a section for little children, and it works great. This ordinance, I'm convinced, is counterproductive. It'll put our children at odds with law enforcement, and it's premature. Instead, let's have parks immediately post signage that clearly states the age restrictions and conditions of use. Let's create a teen place in the park because they need that space. So I'm asking that we do that. And let's give it 90 days or 100 days to see if it works. If it doesn't, then I'll concede that maybe we need an ordinance. But until then, I'm convinced we don't. So thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you. Commissioner Finger.
Thank you. We've discussed this numerous times, and each time it's been said by Commissioner Carroll had experiences there. Mayor Brown, who's not here to speak right now, but had received emails from concerned residents who had experiences there that they weren't good experiences. The overarching concern is not to call the police department every single day just because. It's to allow them, as was explained by as the police department explained, and perhaps, I mean, any further questions, I'm sure the chief would be happy to answer, but my understanding was that would give them, when they're there, should PD have to be there, would actually give them it would give them the authority, if they need it, to do something about the situation if something needs to be done. And we're not, they're not going to be there for the kid sliding down the slide. These are instances that, have been talked about of further problems. And the officers who have been out there, who talk to us, have told us that groups of kids of the ages you're describing, they don't say, oh, no problem, we'll just leave. It's also for parents or grandparents who don't feel comfortable because the older kids are there, or perhaps someone else is there who doesn't have kids, or if there's people, if they don't feel right, if they're not comfortable. And I think we owe that to the community, that in that small space, that they have an opportunity. And PD is not the first call. And we've been explained that by Recreation and Parks, how it works. I think we owe that to our community to give them an outlet if things aren't right there, that they can go through our police department, if necessary, to feel safe and come back and enjoy the park. Otherwise, that's not fair to the parents, kids, grandparents, and everybody that are using it. So I support still moving forward on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Holk?
Yes, I also still support this ordinance. Chief, this ordinance, these calls, when the police department receives them, it's not like you're going out there and you're going to slap this trespassing on this teenager, correct?
I guess it depends on the teenager and if he's had interaction with law enforcement prior to this. If this is his first experience and interaction with law enforcement, then hopefully discretion will be applied and the child will not have a bad experience with law enforcement.
So it would be 2 to 3 times before it finally came down to, okay, you've been warned fairly, and now the situation needs to be addressed. That was just one of the things that I wanted to make clear. We're not going to go in there like gangbusters and start rounding them up and hauling them away and writing them things that are going to ruin their lives for the rest of their life. These are decisions that they make as well. If they're given a warning once, twice, third time, they get the trespassing warrant. That was a choice that they made. They were given ample opportunity to change the situation and keep it from accelerating to that. My main concern still, though, is the families that go there with their children that leave because they're not comfortable there. We have provided an area that is specifically fenced off to maintain young children, their parents, their guardians, their babysitters, whoever brought them there to play at the park. And I have seen kids hauled away from there crying because they don't want to leave, but grandma's afraid, or there's a situation there where they're not comfortable having their children there. I had spoken with several people, have contacted me because they know where I stand on this and have been in that situation. And to me, that is not right. That is not what that park provides. Directly behind the park, between that play area and Performing Arts Center, there is an exercise area. There's no age limit on that. If they just want to hang out, go sit out there. And anybody can go sit there and make that their section of the park. But that area is specifically designed for 2 to 13, 12-year-olds. And I just feel like that I stand behind this 110%, this ordinance.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll, I'll get to you in just one second. Chief, I've got a quick question for you. If a kid is sitting on a swing who's 14 years old and is some overzealous person decides to call the police, because the ordinance states that that person, regardless of what they're doing, is not allowed to be at that swing. Correct?
Yep.
So what is going to be the interaction between the police department and that kid?
Obviously, we'll have to have that interview with that child and
Right.
explain the process and the signage and try to educate them. And if all goes well, they'll listen to us and move on.
Right. So I am not by any means do I not believe that there are children or younger kids, teenagers that are at Largo Central Park, because first of all, let's also remember that this does not just fall for Largo Central Park. This is every single park in the city of Largo that has a playground in it. Right, so let's make sure that that's clear for everybody up here as well. And now at Largo Central Park, where the majority of these issues are happening, I completely understand and agree that there are kids that are probably, causing issues for people that are there. I've seen it. I know Commissioner Carroll's talked to about it. The mayor has had some complaints. I understand that. I understand that it causes, it can cause some friction between parents and teenagers. I understand that. I can assure you that if this ordinance would have been in place when I was a kid in the city of Largo, that I guarantee, Chief, you would have had, somebody coming and saying hi to me. Because that's, like Commissioner Gerard stated earlier, it's what kids do. We've all been there before. And I can, if anybody sitting up here believes that the police won't get called, or the only time the police department is going to get called is for kids who are being bad, you're lying to yourselves.
No.
You're absolutely lying to yourselves, because, Chief, how many times do you believe that there's calls, regardless of what the situation is, just because somebody's pissed off at somebody else? I know, have been doing several ride-alongs over my time here. The police department is you guys are generally used from the citizenry as a safeguard, I just knocked the gavel down. Don't tell the mayor I did that. But no, you guys are used to placate folks. If somebody's mad at their roommate, or they're mad at a teenager because the sign now says that this kid, who they believe is 13, 14, 15, is reading a book, I can assure you that and it's going to happen. It's going to happen more than we want to talk about, that there are going to be situations where the police department's called. Then, all the other important things that are happening in the city of Largo that the police need to be taken care of is going to have to, get delayed because of some ludicrous call about a teenager who's sitting on a swing because somebody's just a little overzealous. And, we're going to go round and round on this, and Commissioner Carroll, I apologize for taking your time, but, I cannot support this. So, sorry, Commissioner Carroll, go ahead. Sorry, thank you.
That's okay, Vice Mayor. You can have all the time you need. I'm just going to say at the outset, I'm going to support this ordinance. I understand where other commissioners are coming from. For me, it's not about taking something away from teenagers. It's about giving something back to parents of young children. This playground was designed, funds were raised, and it was built specifically for a specific age group. I would venture to say if a 5 or 6-year-old kid was running around over at the skate bowl over there at Bayhead, we'd get calls that it's inappropriate, they shouldn't be there, it's dangerous, whatever it might be. So it's not about, well-behaved children deciding to sit on the swing and read a book. It's about the fact that we're getting feedback from our citizens that they don't feel comfortable going to a facility that we designed and built for a specific age group. So I'm sorry that we have to have ordinances to address these sorts of things. This is not a crime. This is more of a quality of life issue. So I intend to support it, and I totally respect where the rest of you are coming from. but I have had enough conversations with parents who have put their kids back in the car and left because of behavior. Not just my teens, but that's a matter for another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carroll. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. My recommendation is to find a better way to solve the issue. I've said that I understand, and it's clear that this equipment is for children aged 2 to 12, and I understand. And by the way, I've been to the park too, and I've been to the playground too, and I've been to the playground when teenagers were playing on the equipment. And I walked over to the teenagers, and I wasn't wearing any kind of sign saying who I am or that I'm a commissioner and all that. I walked over to the teenagers, and I very nicely said, hey, I don't want to be a jerk, but this equipment is only for kids 2 to 12, and it's not safe. And not only that, but you're kind of freaking out the little kids. Could you go find somewhere else to play or to hang out? And they looked at me like teenagers will look at you, and then they quietly left. That's all it took. So the situation can be solved very clearly by making it clear, because it's not clear. If you looked at the signs, nobody reads down to that except for someone like me who was looking for the age range. You make it clear on the sign, this is reserved for children 2 to 12, and the kids and the teens will know that there's a place in the park that's just for them. They won't go to the playground because they got their own place. So, and I'm not saying that the police officers would issue a trespass warning on the first visit, because they wouldn't unless somebody got belligerent. But I'll tell you one thing, having been a teenager myself, and it's been a while, but I remember clearly, if I was someplace with a group of my friends and saw a uniformed officer heading my way, the first thing I would do is become defensive. I wouldn't think, oh, here come the police, we're going to have a good time. I'd become defensive. And I would carry that attitude with me into adulthood, because that officer is coming to tell me to go somewhere else. I don't want our police to have to go through that. And I don't want these teens to have to go through that. It's not necessary. And I don't want us to pass an ordinance that is simply not necessary. So let's try something first. As I said, I'm glad and I'll be happy to say I was wrong. I've been wrong before. It doesn't kill me. All right? But let's try something that's less intrusive and less heavy-handed than passing an ordinance, so somebody who gets upset or sees a teenager there knows they can call the police, and the police will clear them out, and suddenly they don't have to do their job. Let's try something a little easier first. Hey, 3 months, 3.5 months, can't we try that? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Finger.
Thank you. If I'm correct, we already have the ability to call PD anyway while we're out there. If something strikes our fancy and we don't like it, we can call PD. This now is simply giving PD the teeth that if what's going on out there really is to a level that it shouldn't be, they now have the authority they need to do what they need to do. So they could be called right now for it. I see this actually as us being, first let me say, I have a lot of faith in our police department through the community work they've done, that those individuals that you're talking about, unless they've always had a run-in with the police department, which the chief said, then they know, they know who, but that they're not out there, they're not the bad guys. They've been involved in community policing for so long that that relationship has been built. And second, that I see this as a proactive approach as opposed to being reactive, because I would rather us be in a position right now where we give that extra, the extra teeth should they need it, instead of us being up here as an aftermath and PD saying to us, well, if we had something that we could have done, that's a worse situation to be in. So I think we're being very proactive. I think that our police department is not overzealous about showing, up and just wanting to arrest kids for the sake of arresting them. They can be there anyway, like I said. So I think this is a great idea. We've been talking about it, and I would make the motion, but I think there are some other
There's some other comments still. Chief, let me first of all state that I understand that if the police department ends up at the park for a bunch of kids, they were called there. I have no, belief that you guys are just patrolling the park looking for kids to pick up. I know that that's not the case. I have, the utmost respect for you and your department and the things that you guys are doing. And I think our discussion up here is revolving around more so, is it something that we need to have in place, or is it not something that we need to have in place? Because if it is put in place, then you guys have to respond regardless of whether or not you believe in it or not, right? I mean, it's now an ordinance for the city of Largo. Somebody calls, you have to respond. That's the way that works. I get that, I understand that, and I completely respect your side of it. I'm just trying to prevent it from ever getting to you. So,
May I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please do, please,
Yeah.
sure.
So a couple of things, just listening to the comment. Commissioner Gerard, you spoke on something that really resonated with me is I've got 2 young kids that are of age where they wouldn't be able to go in that playground area. I know they've played at some of the areas with friends nicely. They're great places to play. Let's face it, they're great. The kids love it. We do need to have an avenue, otherwise we're going to displace them. So we can move them along out of Central Park to where, is my question, right? If we have that ability. I think something you touched on is there needs to be a place for those other kids that they want to go have a fun area that's attractive and has all the fun stuff to go play in like the little kids. So, the intent is, when we first had the discussion with RPA, is this is meant for the worst of the worst. To be able to go there, if you have, the repeat group of kids. You're right, Vice Mayor, there will be a challenge trying to navigate through who's considering the worst of the worst, right? So we know with training with RPA staff is they're not going to call us for all the smaller issues, right? But that's not going to stop the citizen from calling in something that may not rise to the level that the training and discussion with the police department and RPA is having is, here's a group of 6 or 7, they're not listening, they're being belligerent, we need your assistance, we're out there, and now we have some teeth to use to have them vacate that area. Our other challenge is going to be the private citizen calling in with 1 or 2 people that they don't feel should be in there, that those young kids might give them a hard time. That might be a bit more of a challenge for us, because clearly we want to be able to provide good service, but we also don't want to make sure, I certainly don't want to make sure that I'm putting officers in a situation where we're using force on juveniles to take them out of a playground. But yes, there'll be some training, there'll have to be some educational component to it to make sure that we just don't go in there and it's the first time offender and there's just 2 of the kids in there. But could we have that position? I think absolutely. I think in today's environment, the youth of today, even 2 kids in there, you might get 2 of them that say, you know what, I'm not leaving. Make me. And we'll make you. That's our job, right? So, but I think a big part of that is before we start displacing them, do we have another place that we can safely advise them to go and be a space for them in that age group?
The library?
Thank you. So, yeah, and I think to Commissioner Gerard's point earlier, in which I much appreciated your comments at the beginning, very, very well thought out. So I think the point of, I know we have, like he said, Commissioner Gerard said, across the street is Bayhead, which is designed for teens. But let's face it, for a middle schooler, a 6-lane road can be not only a hazard, but a block, right? I mean, I'm sure I have a 12-year-old daughter at home, and I don't want her crossing East Bay or Seminole. That's not a safe place for her to be.
They're not going to use the crosswalk.
And right, I mean, if they're coming from the playground at Largo Central Park, it's a straight shot straight across the street. They're not going to go up to the more than likely, right? So they're going to try to cross around the railroad tracks or somewhere in that area. So yeah, I mean, it can definitely be a block to get somebody over there, or to get kids over there, especially if they're coming from the middle school or the high school, which, you know, obviously Central Park is centrally located. So, yeah, again, my biggest concern is, and again, I'm not denying that there are kids out there that are absolutely causing a problem. I've read all the comments on Facebook. I've talked to plenty of people. I obviously have kids that I raised here in the city of Largo I spent many hours on the playground at Largo Central Park. I get it. I understand that. But the unintended consequences are what concerns me. Is, again, to my point earlier, is just there's going to be many occasions where there's just overzealous people who don't like, the old get off my lawn crowd is going to be out there, and that's exactly what they're going to be doing. And unfortunately, then you guys, the police department, now has to, report to that, and it just seems like a lot of extra work for me for something that's, for the majority of the time, is not a big problem. So we'll go ahead on.
Is through recreation and parks.
Yep, and yeah, I mean, I know we've left Krista, we left you out of this whole conversation. You're probably like, yes, thank you. It's just keep talking to the chief. But
it's not right away to PD, right?
Well, no. So my understanding, and excuse me for interrupting, but my understanding is, Parks and Rec, you guys will have in some certain situations can call the police department and say, hey, this is a group of teens that we need to remove from this area.
That is correct. We would approach them first and try and handle it, give them a warning, and then if they didn't cooperate, then at that point we would reach out to PD.
Right. But to the chief's point earlier and my point earlier, anybody can call the police department and say, hey, I know this kid's 14 and I don't want him on this playground. Whether or not they're being, bad or whatever that meaning of that word is, they can call the police department. And I'm not talking, I know that you guys are going to go through training, and I know you're obviously the majority of those folks working with kids in a regular basis anyhow, so they could probably, deflate some of those issues a lot easier than some of us. But obviously there are situations where that needs to happen. I'm not denying that is a case, but I just, I had a long conversation with the Largo Youth Leadership Council about this, and they were very upset that this is even under consideration.
Excuse me.
It doesn't matter if it's the cream of the crop kid or not, but if that cream of the crop kid is sitting on and again, this is probably a little bit of hyperbole, but if the kid is sitting there on the swing reading a book, and some overzealous person wants to call the police on that kid, they can absolutely do that, and the police have to show up. It's not.
They could today too.
They absolutely could, but the problem is now that kid has to get kicked out of the playground because we have an ordinance in place. So again, we can go.
Mayor, we have other people.
Yeah, we do. I'm gonna continue on. So Commissioner Holt, thank you for waiting.
So we operate under priority calls, correct? So if somebody calls and says, there's a 14-year-old sitting on a swing reading a book, are we going to hightail it, put the lights on, and haul butt to Largo Central Park?
No.
Okay. So given that, and it not being a huge priority call, unless the call comes in and says, hey, there's 6 kids rolling around, scaring kids, that's more of a priority call where, yes, you might make a little more effort to get there. So my point being is that every single phone call that comes in from a parent, an overzealous parent, is not going to always be addressed, and by the time police get there, they could be already gone. To Commissioner Gerard's reaction to police officers coming at them, when I was younger, when I saw a police officer coming at me, I straightened up and walked straight, total respect for the law, always, to this day, no matter what. I used to be afraid even when I wasn't doing something wrong. I can remember pulling off the side road because a police officer was behind me. Not that I was afraid of them, but just afraid that maybe I was doing something wrong. I don't know. And you shouldn't be that way because, like I said, the respect for our police department and every police department throughout our country is my top of my list. But I think Commissioner Carroll, sorry, has said it best, is the point of this ordinance, one of the main points is the safety of our children. And yes, I do agree that teenagers need a place to go and they need a place to call their own. If they're coming from Largo Middle, you go straight up to Seminole Boulevard, cross at that crosswalk, and you're at Bayhead instead of walking to Seminole Park and then crossing in the middle of the road. I'm just trying to wrap my head around some of these comments, and it's like I from day one when we first started discussing this, my feeling was, I can't believe that we're even having a huge discussion about this. I see nothing wrong with having this ordinance, and Chief, I know you said you have children that are at that age, but you know what? I also know that you're at that park with them. And you're watching them. You don't just drop your kids off at the park and let them do whatever they want to do. That makes a difference. And there was a guy that was interviewed in your interview that you did where he had a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old. And the 13-year-old likes playing with the 7-year-old in the park. Nobody's going to call the police and say, oh, this guy's got his 13-year-old out here playing with his 7-year-old daughter. It's not creating any problems. If there's not a reason to call, then people aren't going to call.
That's a lie. That is.
I'm sorry. Okay, but if they don't call, or if they do call, we have priority calls. If somebody's just calling and say, hey, there's somebody who's over age in this park, our police department is not going to just jump in their cars and run down there.
I'm going to go ahead and continue. Sorry, I apologize for interrupting.
I think Commissioner Carroll had his hand raised.
He did. I'm going to, Commissioner Carroll, go ahead. And Commissioner, I'll give it to you in a second. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Carroll.
Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time talking about this. I think one thing I was going to bring up that Commissioner Holt already covered was priority dispatch. To your concerns, Vice Mayor, just because somebody calls the police department and thinks that a 15-year-old kid is in the playground, that goes way down on the priority list unless there's actually an incident in progress, like a disturbance in progress. And also, that doesn't mean the dispatch couldn't tell the concerned parent to flag down somebody from the park and have them intervene. I wish we didn't have to do stuff like this. I wish we didn't have to have laws against shoplifting, but we do. So it's not about age, it's about behavior. We're trying to give, none of us on the dais came up with this idea. This is stuff that our staff, our police department, and our recreation department told us that they thought we should consider. That's what we're doing. We're having a great debate on it. But I'm not sure any one of us is going to sway the other. So I'm thinking that, if I may, it might be time for a motion.
Yep, we have one more comment, and then if nothing else comes up, then I will accept the motion. So, Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Carroll. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. If I can use a metaphor, if you have a pot that's about to boil over, you don't call the police. You turn the fire off under the pot. This is what I'm recommending. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If this suggestion is adopted that I'm making, and it doesn't work, we can come back and revisit it. If you give the teens a place that they can go that's their own, they're not going to go to the playground. They're going to go to their own place. The example, again, is at the library. The teens go to the teen room, the tweens go to the tween area, and the kids go to the children's area. And it works. The teens are going to the playground because it's nice and it's in the shade and there's a place where they can hang around. They're not going to go out into the middle of the park or just kind of figure out, because they need a place where they can meet up. And by the way, 1 or 2 kids, they usually go in smaller groups. They usually go into groups of 3 or 4. As I said, I've been there. I've asked teens to find someplace else, and they've moved along. There's just a better way to handle the situation that we're being asked to handle. And by the way, I just want to point out that the exercise equipment that's right outside of the playground, that's for people 14 and up. So if you're 13 years old, you got no place to go. Sorry, you're in a quandary. You're either too old or too young to enjoy the facilities, because it hasn't been considered. I don't know why teens were forgotten when the facilities at Largo Central Park were built out. I don't know why they were forgotten, but they have been forgotten. And there are kids. There are children. They didn't turn into little monsters as soon as they turned 13. There are children, and we ought to give them some consideration and a little bit of respect that they can do the right thing. And I'm going to say there is priority dispatch. But the PD sometimes, God bless them. I'm a huge supporter of the PD. I've done plenty of ride-alongs myself. And I think they do a great job. I don't want to put an officer in this situation where he's got to go do something like that. I just don't want to do it. And priority dispatch, and I'll get back to that, is a good thing. But a lot of times there's an officer in the zone who's available to go there. And if he's not on another call, he's going to be sent there. And I don't want them to have to go there. So teenagers who, once again, by their very nature, because this is what they're supposed to be going through as they grow up, a teenager is going to see an officer there, and it's going to cross his mind that there's a challenge coming. Especially if you're going to tell him to go away from some place that he's enjoying himself or she's enjoying herself. And especially if it's happened once or twice, because then the kids will know through the grapevine that this is what happens. So, one more time, and I know there's going to be a motion, and we'll welcome a motion. One more time, let's try something else. Let's just try something else. Let's give it some time to prove itself. If it doesn't prove itself, then we can come back and revisit this. 90 days after, this came up once before in 2015. We've waited 6 years. Can we wait another 90 days? Can we just wait another 90 days to see? That's all I'm asking. There's a better way to do this. And I don't want to, and I'll end with this. We pass this ordinance, and those parents who've been complaining, and especially if we don't give the teens a place to go, and those parents who have complained, once they know this ordinance is passed, the phone's going to ring at the police department. The dispatchers are going to start getting the calls, because now they got the power. I don't want to put them in a situation where they're calling the police on children, and I would rather put them in a situation where their children aren't being bothered at the playground because those teenagers go in somewhere else. That's their very own that they can own. So, enough speeching from me.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments by the commission. I will accept the motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-59 on second and final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can the city clerk poll the board, please?
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Commissioner Finger?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerard?
No.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
No.
Commissioner Hulk?
Yes.
Commissioner Carroll?
Yes.
Motion fails 3-3.
Thank you.
So,
I move to postpone ordinance number 2021-59 for 3 months.
So
Can I do that?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Commissioner. I just wanted to make the comment. So under your rules, on a 3-3 vote, if you cannot come to a majority vote tonight, then this item gets kicked over to the next meeting.
right.
It's not.
Okay, so, all right.
I just wanted to clarify what the city clerk said. The motion didn't pass, but
it
the
will-
item
it will
has
come
not
back
been
at our next
acted on
regular
yet.
Scheduled meeting?
I'm sorry?
It'll be back on the agenda at the next regularly scheduled meeting?
Yes, so a 3-3 vote on a motion takes no action. So if you can't get another motion that garners a majority of 4 commissioners, then it'll go on the next agenda.
So, okay.
I can make a motion and say postpone it for 3 months and see where we go from there. And if I can get 4 votes, then it will come back up. Okay. I move to postpone ordinance number 2021-59 for 3 months. I don't know.
Second.
Yeah, so what is your goal?
My goal is to see what Commissioner Gerard is offering, but I think maybe giving RPA a little bit an opportunity to see that the commission seems to be a little divided on this, and I know a lot of residents are. Maybe try to figure out a solution or something where even the chief said, something where these kids can go or we can work with them, it seems very hotly debated, and I think we could do this without trying to pass an ordinance at this time.
We can look into some options.
Do you think that your department could come up with options?
Definitely.
Okay.
So we can look into it.
Okay.
So the length of time that you want it, I'm sorry, with your motion was 3 months?
You think 3 months is enough?
No.
No?
Your motion.
We've been
I don't
working
have
on
it.
this for like 3 months already, and you said.
Yeah, but my concern is we've been at this, it came up many, many years ago, it failed, and now it's back up again, and it's starting to get, where it is, and we seem to be divided again. We've put it off this amount of time. I don't understand, and I'm wondering, I don't know the history, the background of the RPA department. They really haven't moved forward on anything.
I think we could definitely look at some options within 3 months. I'm not sure that we would be able to see a difference and if we would be able to put those options into reality within that time period, but we would definitely be able to do some brainstorming.
So in that time, that 3 months, then it would come back to the commission. And at that time, you could, along with this agenda item, you could bring those recommendations. If you had some different recommendations, you could bring those as well.
Okay.
Would that be feasible for you?
Yes.
Recommendations on the ordinance or what they're going to offer?
Alternatives.
The alternative
I don't.
offers.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Alternatives of an area where we could actually, a hangout area for them within Largo Central Park.
I think you just named it, though. You said the library has room for teens. The rest of the park has room for teens. Bayhead has room for teens. I don't think we need, I don't want to burden staff to come back to us with alternatives of where teens should go. Okay. It more so sounds like you're looking for, I think, for data that is PD responding to the park, to whatever park, every single day? I'm not in favor of doing that.
All right, Chief, is it possible for you to get us any of that, like call data on, I don't know, if you...
Funny you should ask for it, sir.
Oh, how about that?
I was going to ask, I didn't know if Deputy Chief
More than
Lux shared
prepared.
with you
Yes.
last meeting. Did he share any
It did
statistics
not.
with you?
No.
No, yes, he did not.
Okay. So our call for service data from January 1 to December 31, 2020, we had a total calls for the year of 717 calls to Largo Central Park in all. The hot hours for that one seemed to be a slight increase on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so it's roughly an average of, say, 100 calls per day for everything.
And this is for Largo Central?
Largo Central Park, that's all calls for service.
Yes, thank you.
So we were able to break those down. Now, this is what gets coded by the officers. Let me clarify and preface with that, right? From January 1 to December 31 of 2020, we had 9 calls for service about juveniles at the playground. The hot spot was Saturday with 3. There was an average of, there was 2 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. They also classified those calls. We combined the two between what was classified or coded out by the officer as a juvenile and a nuisance. So we included the nuisance code in there as well for that time period. So that was for 2020. So far in 21, up until June 9th, we had 342 calls for service total at the park. And so far this year, 13 calls for service were identified as juveniles at the playground. Friday, for this particular one, was 6 on Fridays, and Sunday was 1, Monday 2, Tuesday 1, Wednesday 2, and Thursday 1, and then Friday was 6.
Okay, so year-to-date, 13 calls
Yes,
for juveniles.
that were coded out as juveniles, yes.
Yeah, sounds like an epidemic.
Well, right, but there's other reasons that we discussed, whether for families not feeling safe there. And we discussed homelessness, we discussed just individuals, things that just maybe make people feel unsafe.
Yes, you're right. We do have a motion and a second. We have a motion from Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Gerard.
But this is for what? This is to...
The motion that is on the floor now is to bring this item back in 3 months, with some recommendations from RPA as to some other alternatives for places for teens. Does that sound correct?
Well, and also opportunities where maybe talking to RPA that we could work with our library staff, since that seems to be a location that they can go to. Maybe gravitating them to the library would be the best way we can get them to a location. I think that partnership of the two departments can work and solve this instead of some ordinance that I can't support.
So, all right.
If possible, I would love to see the Youth Advisory Council involved in this, so we can get input from them. I don't want to micromanage this, but I think if we're talking about a place for our youth, then maybe we should ask our youth what they want, what would work, okay?
Right, but we're really not. That's not really our objective.
So that's what the objective of the proposed,
Right.
that's the objective.
So why can't we just pass the ordinance and then say, okay,
then
Parks and Rec, can we build an area for
The
the...
ordinance didn't pass, that's why.
I know that, but we're gonna vote on it again at the next meeting.
Yeah, I
So we vote at the next meeting, and can't we we changing the budget all the time, so let's take part of
All right,
the
how
Parks
about
and
we
Rec's
vote on-
budget and
how
say,
about we
let's
vote-
build
pull my
an
ordinance. All right,
area
hold on
for
a second.
teenagers.
Please, let me take this back under control. Please. So there's a motion and a second. We're going to take a vote on that. And then if we'd like to have more discussion about this ordinance that we have now, we can talk about that. So, John, sorry, Carol. Commissioner Carroll, you have your hand raised.
I can wait, Vice Mayor. I think you know where I'm coming from. The only comment I would make is these things that you are proposing or have been discussed are not mutually exclusive. Just because you move forward with an ordinance doesn't mean you can't do these other things suggested. But we'll wait and see how the vote turns out.
Agreed. Thank you.
It's hard to hear him.
All right, so we're gonna come. Can the city clerk pull the board on the current motion that's on the floor now?
Commissioner Fenger?
No.
Commissioner Gerard?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hulk?
No.
Commissioner Carroll?
Was that a no, Commissioner Carroll?
No.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is tied at 3-3.
So the motion fails.
Right.
Okay, so would we like to have any more discussion about the ordinance number 2021-59 that did not pass tonight, which as of right now will come back to the commission at our next regularly scheduled commission meeting?
No.
And no more discussion?
No,
We don't want to talk, it's only 8. Like, I'll call some Uber Eats in and,
No, I think the data that the chief provided is great.
all right, so thank you, everybody, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks and have some more discussion about it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Holt, I apologize for rudely interrupting you earlier, and it's
No
uncalled
worries.
for, and
No worries. It's
I
passion.
apologize. I know, but that doesn't excuse that, so I apologize.
No. Apology accepted.
Thank you. On to much bigger and better things. We'll talk about solid waste.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This item is a second reading, amending the solid waste ordinance to increase fees and to clarify certain definitions. There have been no changes since first reading, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commission.
Ordinance number 2021-62, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City of Largo Code of Ordinances, Chapter 20, Solid Waste, by amending Section 20-1 to clarify definitions, by amending Section 20-30 to increase fees for residential curbside service and redefine bulky waste, by amending Section 20-32 to increase fees for commercial and industrial container service, by amending Section 20-71 to permit subscribers to place a lock on enclosures of commercial service containers upon payment of a fee, by amending Section 20-72 regarding the collection of horticultural and yard waste, providing for severabilities, providing an effective date.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there any cards on this
I have
item?
one card from Carol Stupp.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Carol Stupp, and I live in the City of Largo, Florida. Ordinance number 2021-62 places a huge and unnecessary burden on the homeowner regarding tree debris. Making the homeowner bundle in 4-foot lengths becomes unwieldy. The ends of the branches are full of smaller branches and leaves, and to try and bundle these ends seems impossible when you think about it or try it yourself. Now, if you had access to a chipper, then the problem is solved, but homeowners do not have chippers. Tropical storms, tornadoes, and hurricanes can threaten a tree and make it unsafe. Responsible homeowners who take responsibility for shaping, dead limb removal, removal of unwanted limbs before hurricanes or other high winds arrive should not have to be burdened with 4-foot lengths, tying in bundles, etc., when the irresponsible ones will have these requirements waived after the disaster. I do not think any one of us would want the unintended consequences that can occur when a tree is compromised for one reason or another when it was actually preventable. I have never seen a problem with the city trucks picking up this debris with the claw. The workers do a fine job. Can there be a discussion concerning this 4-foot length and bundling? Please deny the ordinance as written. Consider rewriting this part of the ordinance before passing ordinance number 2021-62. Try bundling that, though. It's all, it's all over. I mean, you cut a limb, and you're going to have, and it doesn't look like it when you're up in the tree. I mean, when you're looking at the tree. But you cut a limb, take any limb, and it's going to be a whole lot bigger when it comes down because of the brush and the leaves. And the foliage is like all green and, it's not dead. I mean, most our trees don't really die back like they do in the north for the winter. So my point is that you look at a tree and it'll look real little when you're down here. But if you ever watch a tree, somebody who takes a limb, that is going to be full of all kinds of branches, and it's going to, that's just the nature of the oak trees here, and the maples and whatever other tree there is. So my point is, please, can you just rewrite that? It's easy to drag the limb to the front. If you're requesting that the limbs be, 4 feet's pretty hard to, that's a lot to cut, okay? And you really don't want to endanger people with a saw, too. So my point is, maybe 7 foot or 8 foot, because you're talking about 5 cubic yards anyway, so we have to stay within that. But please, something.
Thank you.
Help us out.
Thank you.
That was the only card I had.
Thank you. So, Kim, obviously you're not running a cloth truck on Tuesdays, but I don't I mean, I'm not looking at the ordinance right now, but I believe that that has been a part of the ordinance throughout this entire time, right? That's not in addition to the ordinance. The addition to the ordinance that we're talking about right now is the increase of fee generally, and there are some definitions or clarity of definitions.
Yeah, some small clarifications. Obviously, I am not Michael Gordon. I wish Mr. Gordon were here right now. If I could try channeling him a little bit, the 4% or the 4-foot length has been in place for a while. They, to my knowledge, they do not measure the debris. They are very lenient, very respectful of people's abilities. It's really meant to give them some sort of ability to regulate those who might tend to take advantage of the waste. In finance, we get all kinds of complaints on fees.
Mm-hmm.
We really never get complaints from residents, and we're the first ones that people will call. So I know the solid waste folks are hard workers. They're very willing to work with people, and I would put our garbage service, solid waste service up against any community, anywhere, anytime. I would pretty much guarantee, and again, I'm not in solid waste, but I would pretty much guarantee they're just going to do their job and get it done, and they're not trying to make life hard on people.
No, right. I just wanted to, just a little bit of a clarification. And I can say from my personal, understanding of, and I've put out all kinds of stuff on the curb. I have seen all sorts of stuff out on the curb. If the truck can fit it in the truck, it generally picks it up. So, but Ms. Stupp, we will have our, the director for that department be in contact with you so they can clarify any issues that you might have with that. But I can assure you that if there's a tree that, limb or something that you had needed to cut down and put it out for the curb for the claw truck to pick it up, if they can fit it in the truck, they're going to do what they can to get it in the truck. So I don't want to have a back and forth, but just so, so just to, kind of help you out a little bit, we will definitely make sure that that department contacts you to talk specifically about that, and then any questions you might have from there, you can ask them. Okay? So if there's any other comment, or I'll take a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-62 on second and final reading.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. That was easy. Next up is
Everything's going to be easy there.
let's do some more easy ones. Ordinance number 2021-57.
Right, good evening, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. This is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-57. This is a budget amendment deleting one full-time GIS analyst position and creating one full-time equivalent GIS supervisor position. This item passed on first reading. There have been no changes since first reading. Staff's available for any questions.
Ordinance number 2021-57, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by Resolution 2279 by amending the Information Technology Department budget by deleting one full-time equivalent GIS analyst position and adding one full-time equivalent GIS supervisor position, providing an effective date.
Do we have any cards on this?
Yeah, sorry. Do we have any cards?
I have no cards.
Just kind of blank every once in a while. Sorry, guys. So, any questions from the commission?
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-57 on second and final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 2021-58.
Yes, Ordinance 2021-58 is the second reading of a budget amendment appropriating $160,000 in expenditures in the IT department for additional computers for our Microsoft migration project. As we discussed at the first reading, this isn't new money. We're deducting this amount from next year's budget. This is just allowing them to make those purchases earlier. There's been a very long lead time on technology purchases right now, so this helps keep the project on track. It was passed on first reading, and there have been no changes since first reading, and staff's available for any questions.
Perfect.
Ordinance number 2021-58, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by Resolution 2279 by appropriating expenditures in the amount of $160,000 within the Information Technology Department General Fund, Wastewater Fund, Solid Waste Fund, and Recreation Parks and Arts Golf Course Fund budgets, providing an effective date.
Do we have any cards?
I have no cards.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-58 on second and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next up is ordinance number 2021-60.
All right, this is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-60. This is a budget amendment amending the FY21 Public Works budget by deleting one FTE office specialist position and creating a new one FTE customer service supervisor position. This item passed on first reading, and there have been no changes since first reading.
Ordinance number 2021-60, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by Resolution 2279 by amending the Public Works Department budget by deleting one full-time equivalent office specialist position and adding one full-time equivalent customer service supervisor position, providing an effective date.
Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2021-60 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next up is the approval of the Pinellas County Housing Compact.
Good evening, Commissioners. Pinellas County has helped lead the way in formation of a countywide housing strategy tactical team to establish a unified approach to addressing affordable housing in our communities. City staff from the Planning Division and Housing Division serve on this tactical team. Recognizing that affordable housing is a foundational component to the economic stability and quality of life in all communities throughout Pinellas County, the goal is to create a coordinated and measurable countywide approach to meeting our current and future residents' needs for rental and ownership housing affordability. Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact is the first major step toward establishing a unified approach to by obtaining commitment from the three large jurisdictions, Largo, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg, Pinellas County, and Forward Pinellas. Tonight here I have Evan Johnson, who's the Planning Division Manager from Pinellas County, and he's just got a brief presentation to share some of the key highlights in this Affordable Housing Compact. I'll turn it over to Evan.
Good evening, everyone. Evan Johnson, Planning Division Manager with Pinellas County Planning Division, and there we go. I apologize, my first time in this commission chamber, so.
Welcome.
So as Arrow mentioned, I'm going to walk you all through a brief presentation about the compact and the effort that we have done in order to get here. This will be our third approval along the process so far. We've had Forward Pinellas and the City of Clearwater thus far. And I think they are trying, there we go. Well, while they work on that, I'm sure I can give you the background. So back at the end of 2019, we convened a group of representatives from housing community development departments from around the county. As Errol mentioned, it was essentially the major cities who are the entitlement communities, which means they have access to CDBG funding and are receiving that at the federal government level. We brought them together along with the county, Forward Pinellas, and the Foundation for a Healthy St. Petersburg. And we talked about this idea of putting together a compact wherein we would cooperate more openly with our affordable housing efforts moving forward. And so the vision came out of this, connecting that idea of housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, along with education, multimodal transportation, and employment. So The idea being, from a countywide level, we want to be focusing on it in that way. There we go. So there's a couple of primary pieces of the compact itself. There's the strategic focus areas. There are a series of sections that I'll briefly walk you through that cover some general topic areas. There is the creation of an action plan, this idea of shared messaging and marketing, and branding, as well as a regulatory toolkit. So I'll walk you briefly through all of those and then answer any questions you might have. So the strategic focus areas, and essentially what this is, again, is a commitment of these governments, as well as Forward Pinellas, to work on issues collaboratively around these issues. So whether that be finding ways to connect housing and employment, dealing with social and economic equity, as well as this idea of accessibility, whether that be special needs housing or other types of special needs situations, and as well as the health impacts of housing. The county is one of 3 communities in Pinellas County that has implemented a health and all policies program. So very much is part of our kind of our DNA, if you will, in planning, and we're really trying to make sure that we bring that into all of our discussions around policy. So the idea of an action plan is really, again, about what is that collective county goal target for housing, for affordable housing units. So far, St. Petersburg came out with a housing plan about a couple years ago now, where they identified some specific targets, but we really want to build upon that from a countywide perspective. We recognize the fact that there's a lot of people who work in St. Petersburg who live in Pinellas Park or in Largo or in Clearwater, because that's where they can afford housing, and that's where they've been able to settle down. So we want to make sure that we're looking at it countywide. Also, this idea of common definitions and terminology. There are the federal and state kind of definitions that we all are required to follow, but there's also at the local level, we tend to define things, and we often define them slightly differently. So I think from again, our public facing, whether that be for somebody looking for housing or whether that be for a developer or maybe somebody who is thinking of relocating a company, how do we simplify the language in and around affordable housing throughout the community? The other item I did want to mention on this is the data sharing and performance measures. So you all may be familiar with the Gateway Memorandum of Understanding. This was kind of built along that Gateway Master Plan model, where the Forward Pinellas is leading this effort to continue to track progress over time. And so we want to make sure that in a very public way we do the same. And so that is part of our, which will lead to the next slide, I believe, let's see, yes, shared messaging. So we are in the process. We have launched a homesforpinellas.org website. It was originally launched for our Penny for Pinellas affordable housing program. It also houses our information about the virtual summit we put on late last year. But this will be evolving again and be rebranded as part of this Advantage Pinellas housing compact. So what we want to do is make that a kind of a comprehensive shared location where people can find out about our housing initiatives under this Advantage Pinellas umbrella. And then finally, the regulatory toolkit. So the major jurisdictions that are the initial partners of this compact all have some level, mainly there are requirements related to, say, SHIP funding from the state, where you have to have incentive packages put into place. So we all have some level of policy and regulatory incentives in and around affordable housing. What we would like to do is not only build a toolkit that kind of looks at best practices from even just the 5 major governments, but also build something that then, as probably myself, hopefully others, hit the road next year to talk to our other communities, it's something that they can use in order to kind of get a leg up to understand what are some the more effective policies and incentives out there that are being used in the county and around the state, frankly. I think there's a lot of good work being done statewide that we want to make sure to showcase here for our communities. So we really want to use this as a technical resource that not only we can use, but all the communities in the county could be using as well. So what's next? Well, I have this meeting. I will be back at actually Pinellas Park will be August 24th, making a presentation to them, and then we'll be back for St. Petersburg approval. And then hopefully by late fall, we'll be back in front of the Board of County Commissioners for their final signature, with the idea that in 2022, we really do want to do a lot of outreach to the other communities to try to get them interested and engaged with this countywide compact. So with that, any questions?
Okay, and I just wanted to highlight, thank you, Evan. Again, Era said this, but the Housing Division and Planning Division have been working with Pinellas County and the other local governments on this compact for quite some time. And we are looking for approval by the Largo City Commission and authorization for the mayor to sign the compact. The other thing to note is that the City of Largo's Community Development Advisory Board recommended approval of the compact on July 26th. And staff and Mr. Johnson are available for questions.
All right. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. First of all, I think this is wonderful. This is something that I've really wanted to see for a very long time, that we can have a coordinated approach to this. My question is, can you very briefly, let us know, what plans you may have or what direction you might take to involve all the municipalities in Pinellas? Are you shooting for 24?
Well, you always shoot for all of them, right? And we, ultimately, I use TBRPC has the resiliency compact that they've been working on and have been out. I think they're probably up to mid-30s as far as the number of communities that have signed it. So that doesn't mean everybody will in the region, but ultimately, I'm hoping that through continued, we're looking to do more summits, educational programming. We're looking to do more direct outreach with staff across the county. And that really will be primarily a partnership between Pinellas County planning staff as well as Ford Pinellas. Ford Pinellas is hand in hand with us and really have dedicated a lot of staff time to that. So I think it's going to be a lot of educational. I want to come to board meetings. I want to, talk to advisory boards and have these conversations about what we're trying to accomplish with this particular effort.
Thank you. It's great to know that we're going to try to get everybody on board with this as much as we can.
We're gonna try our best, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. I was just going to say that I was present at the Community Development Advisory Board meeting where this excellent presentation was made, and the board members put Evan through his paces. I told him what he might expect tonight. I also suggested that, probably with your permission, Vice Mayor, that he might find his way onto an agenda for the Suncoast League if he wants to capture a whole bunch of municipalities at one time. But I told him he'd probably get some good questions this evening, and told him that we are all in favor of partnerships countywide, but we are always interested in being true partners and not subordinate to somebody else's cause. And he assured me that's exactly what they propose here. So like other memorandums of understanding or compacts that we've signed, I think this is a real opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I am the president of the Suncoast League of Cities, which encompasses all of Pinellas County as well as some of the surrounding counties. If you would like to present this to that organization, I'd be happy to help you facilitate that. We meet monthly, and we'd be happy to have. I would be happy to get you in front of that group. So
sounds great.
We'll reach. We'll be in touch for that for sure. Commissioner Smith, go ahead.
I would just say I like this idea. I think partnership's the biggest thing. This commission has said from the beginning, when we all got on here, was that we wanted to work with the county and our other municipalities as one kind of county on many things. So I think this is a great opportunity and tool moving forward, and I appreciate your staff and our staff looking at this. And I'd be interested in the data that comes out of that. I think as a nerd, I really find that kind of stuff interesting. What are some of the drawbacks that you said some of the cities may not sign up? What would be something that they would be kind of hesitant towards?
Well, I think as I mentioned, I think the larger jurisdictions, the entitlement communities that are much more used to dealing with and administering housing-related programs just have a capacity built in as it relates to dealing with affordable housing, whether that be affordable housing developers or, just dealing with SHIP money, et cetera. So I think there's just a general lack of understanding of how these policies and programs may work. So there is an educational component to say, look, this is, very much focused right now as it may relate to a smaller jurisdiction. It's very much focused on policy. It's very much focused on regulatory incentives, right? So what we're talking about is you could be talking about density bonuses. You could be talking about expedited permitting and other flexibility. Our goal is to, make the case and make it as, as a collaborative that it's really important for the long-term success of the county. And I think to Commissioner Gerard's question earlier, my intent is to not only talk to organizations like the Suncoast League of Cities, but also I think it's really important that we get our economic development folks in on these conversations, because there isn't a company that's trying to locate to Pinellas County who doesn't want to know how much housing costs and can my employees get housing. And so I think that this is an economic development conversation, and that affects everyone. That affects, the service workers who prop up our tourism industry, that if they need a place to stay just like anybody else, and that's what makes so many of our communities vibrant. And so we're really hoping to make, that argument across the county, and hopefully be able to educate our elected officials and get more people joining on in this collaboration.
With this a little bit, will you also tie in transportation? Because when someone comes here, not only they're looking for a place, but they want to figure out how their employers are getting around, how long it's going to take.
Right.
So that also.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, is that tied in a little bit?
Yeah, so Fort Pinellas is, very much looking to do more comprehensive multi-jurisdictional corridor planning. Administrator Burton, before the pandemic, was out doing roadshow presentation on this idea of investment corridors and really focusing on really important, our best transit, our best opportunities to start really looking at mixed-use corridors in the county and doing it in a collaborative way. So the county's involved, Fort Pinellas is involved, et cetera. So I think that is very much going to be a driver as those plans start to come to fruition over time. And I don't recall I do know that Fort Pinellas is working on getting approval for its kind of first corridor study, which will happen starting in FY22, I believe. So, but as those move forward and we're all working together to get there, affordable housing is going to be front and center in that discussion. It's going to be a very important part, as is equity, as is, just like transit. So it will be definitely part of that conversation.
Okay, good, thank you.
So first of all, I want to absolutely let everybody know I fully support this plan. I think that, reading through the compact, it looks fantastic. So let me preface what I'm going to say by saying I know with any type of interlocal agreement, it's hard to get any type of solid measurables into like a compact. But from the city's standpoint, I would absolutely like to see, because if you read through the compact, there's a bunch of, we're going to strive to do this, and we want to do this, and we want to do this, which is admirable. And it absolutely needs to be put on paper, and we definitely need to be working in that direction. But from the city standpoint, I would love to see, reporting and what kind of measurables that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to when it comes to this compact. Now, obviously, we need to all work together to make sure that the housing is available for the people that need it. But, there's a lot of goals that are in this compact that I want to make sure that we can achieve in the city. So can we just kind of put that in there somewhere, and you guys just write that in a little note and come back to us at some point in the future and just say, hey, we're doing a great job. But, and also when we talked about, we're talking about all the housing and those issues, we need to make sure that we're looking at this compact when we're making those decisions. And I would recommend that the rest of the commission is looking at that compact when we're making those decisions as well. So great job by everybody. Thank you for the fantastic presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
And again, it's a great compact. It's definitely needed in this county. We're in a struggle to provide housing to people who need it. And I can really appreciate that we're finally realizing that and working towards the right direction. So thank you. Any other comments? I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact and authorize the mayor to sign the compact on behalf of the city of Largo.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all very much. Next up is the approval of a local match.
I'm back again, it's me.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the Affordable Housing Night at City Commission meeting. So we've got 3 items in a row tonight. This item tonight is the Community Development Department is requesting approval for a local government contribution commitment in the amount of $610,000 for a proposed 96-unit affordable housing development at 2075 Seminole Boulevard. Approval of this request will be used in support of the developer's application to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for the 9% low-income housing tax credit program. This program is highly competitive, and this local match commitment qualifies the developer's application for the 5 bonus points, which are often critical in remaining competitive with the other applications. Typically, 1 tax credit project per county is funded each year. The dollar amount of the commitment is established as part of the request for applications from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for jurisdictions within mid-sized counties. So this includes Duval, Hillsborough, Orange, and Pinellas counties. So this amount is not an arbitrary amount. It's specific in that application request that it does the $610,000 in order to get that local match bonus points. The City Commission had previously approved a lower match level of $75,000 to support the developer's proposed state apartment incentive loan program or sale program application, at which time the Community Development Department had also indicated that we may come back for this larger match if it looked like it was going to be feasible with our State Housing Initiative partnership funding. At that time, we were unsure about what was happening with the state funding budget for the SHIP program, and so we were uncomfortable committing at that time to that higher match. So we are back before you tonight. This proposed project is located within the Largo Mall Activity Center and along a transit corridor. The proximity to jobs and transit make this location highly suitable for this development, and it will serve comparable income levels of the retail and hospitality sectors in this local area. In addition, the developer plans to incorporate green design and energy efficiency components into the development. For these reasons, and with the current and projected funding levels for the city's SHIP program, the Community Development Department recommends approval of this local match commitment. And I do have tonight, I have Brett Green from Archoy Partners, who's the parent company for Seminole Square LLC, which is the developer, and he's here to answer any questions about that 9% tax program or any of the other components regarding the local match.
Great. Any discussion? No? Would you like anybody like?
Thinking.
Okay. We're waiting on you, pal. Take your time.
Okay. So how many projects normally, did you say that normally it's very competitive, correct?
It varies per category. I think I looked up from last year, there's 33 applications under this category and 8 were funded.
Okay.
So it's still a good percentage chance of getting funded, and I think with the location criteria, or the location of this project specifically close to an activity center and transit, that it has high chances. It's a really good location for such.
Is there a possibility that the county could, I mean, I know maybe the county puts their own projects on, but with this being such a high area, and they talked about density, activity zones, I would think that they would hop on and support one of ours. I mean, they always seem to same peep, but that's a different story.
So there is, the county requested applications to look at for where they're going to allocate their local match of the $610,000. They did exclude Largo, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater from that, so it's only for areas outside those jurisdictions, with the expectation that the 3 jurisdictions would come up with their own local match if they had a project to support. So the maximum number of applications we would likely expect from Pinellas County is 4, including this.
Okay. And if this is, oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, and if this is approved, what is the going rate of a market force for rental incomes and stuff? I just curiosity.
I have some of that information. Actually, I think I provided a slide. They can put it up on the screen if they've got it there. So looking at, there's the range in incomes that this complex will serve is between 30 and 80% median income. Those income levels are always adjusted based on household size, but rent limits are established based on the number of bedroom units in a complex. Largo's funding will likely go toward a smaller portion of the units. Those will be the ones we'll monitor, and the state tax credit program will be overriding and monitor all of the units. And so based on our state housing rent limits currently at, if you're at 80% median income, which for a one-person household would cap out at $41,350, and you had an efficiency apartment, that would be $1,033. That could be the maximum rent limit for that. If it's a one-bedroom, it would be the $1,107. We are looking at utilizing the SHIP funding particularly toward the very low income units, which is that 50% level. And so you can see the income level cap for that for a one-person household is $25,850. And for an efficiency apartment, the max that the renter could pay for that unit is $646. So you can also see from the developer's perspective that having this local contribution also helps offset some of the construction costs to be able to provide those units for those lower income levels as well.
Okay. And now your development, now I'm going to go to you. You talk about sustainability. What are those kind of things?
So all of the developments that we build go through a rigorous process to obtain a green building certification from one of the nationally recognized certification organizations such as LEED, National Green Building Standard, Florida Green Building Association. We work a lot with LEED and GBS on all of our projects. So they all obtain a bronze or silver level certification.
And what developments have you done that I can use as an example that this would look like?
We're currently developing one in Panama City, very similar to this. It's called Springfield Crossings. We have another one in St. Augustine that's under construction right now that's 132 units. That's a public-private partnership with St. Johns County, where they're contributing some funding as well. That was some hurricane relief funding. We're also building a development up in Stark, Florida, also a garden-style development similar to this one as well. So those are three very similar areas that we're looking to or currently developing.
And when you take into the consideration, I know that'd be down the road, but like transit issues, this is a main corridor. Those developments you had, you worked kind of hand in hand with the cities and stuff like that for transportation?
Yeah, at St. Johns County, we coordinated with their rapid transit to identify an additional stop right outside of the development. With this particular location, there's transit all up and down Seminole and Almerton. We also have dedicated specific areas for ride sharing in and around the community, both pick-up and drop-off areas for deliveries and places for ride sharing drivers to park so they don't block traffic and park in people's right in front of people's access points. So we're looking at all that stuff to make sure that we're staying up to date with the transit, and then also providing pedestrian access directly onto Seminole where it's safe, but easy access onto Seminole so they can easily access the mass transit there.
Okay. And I will add, Commissioner. The site has been through a site plan review in the past, and we had worked with PSTA, and they were looking to locate a new bus pad right adjacent to this property. So that would probably likely happen again in the site plan review process. But they were really good about working with the city to make sure that need gets addressed. Okay. And it is within the Largo Mall Activity Center. So it's right there close to that intersection.
Yeah, because I know that transportation kind of gets backed up a little because there's a bus stop right there in front of, I think it's Walgreens on the corner. And it backs up down Almerton.
Yeah.
So and another stop, I'm just concerned.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be really important to coordinate with PSTA, but they were looking to have just a nicer bus location right in front of that property. So.
Okay, I like that. And then what got you to come to Largo?
We look at developments all throughout the state, and my colleague Dave is from this area, and we first started looking because we knew that there was some coordination with Pinellas County for their Penny for Pinellas funding. And I think what you all are doing with the compact is an excellent idea, and we've actually have been already coordinating with Pinellas County. We submitted an application for funding to support this project with them as well. They want to see us progress a little bit further. One of the things that getting this communication and coordination is going to be really helpful. A lot of counties that we work with are very disjointed, and having this coordination is key. Even just the terminology, density bonuses. We check almost all the boxes that the gentleman put up there as far as access to transit and so forth. And we're actually working with St. Pete Housing Authority as well. They're going to be contributing some project-based vouchers to the development, which will further enhance the viability of the project. So we're really focusing on trying to bring all the different governments collectively together on this development. Affordable housing is challenging. We're renting units significantly below market value, and there's really no ability to increase rents to pay for additional construction costs. So it really requires coordination. The fact that you all are addressing that is very important for continuing to provide more affordable housing to the community.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question, Commissioner?
No.
All right, so just a quick comment. Obviously, we just passed the housing compact, which, and again, I think this project really does check a lot of the boxes that we were just talked about. So was very supportive of 75,000, and we'll support the 610,000. I think if we can get this project into City of Largo, it'd be fantastic, especially where it's located. So thank you for bringing it to us. Thank you for working so hard with our group, and thank you guys for, putting us all together and sticking with it. And hopefully we can get it past the finish line here. So I will fully support it. So anyhow, I'll take a motion if there's no other conversation.
I move to approve local match contribution for Seminole Square Partners, LLC, in the amount of $610,000 for affordable housing development located at 2075 Seminole Boulevard.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you all very much.
you.
Look forward to seeing you for our groundbreaking.
Yes, absolutely. We look forward to that as well.
And staff will keep you updated as well. And Largo today will try and put some updates in there, so when we hear back about the application, you know what the status is.
That'll be fantastic. Thank you, Earl. Yes,
All right.
sir.
Good evening. The intent of this item is to appoint the members of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, or AHAC. Resolution number 2294 was approved by City Commission on July 20th of this year. It established the AHAC and provided for a 9-member committee with member terms of 1 year. The state statute that governs this committee requires that the AHAC shall include 1 representative from at least 6 of several employment, agency, or residency categories. And one of the members will also be an elected official from the City Commission. The memo that you have in front of you provides the names of the proposed members as well as the categories that they represent. The staff believes that the varied backgrounds represented by the proposed members will enable this committee to bring a community-wide perspective to the consideration of affordable housing issues this year. We're available for questions.
All right. Any questions? Let's see. First is Commissioner Finger.
Thank you. Since reading through this and understanding, so it says that this board or committee will meet for a total of 1 year?
Well, the terms are approved for 1 year. The committee's charge will be to consider the different affordable housing incentives that the city is providing, and discuss probably other related affordable housing issues, and then prepare a report which will go to City Commission this December.
is there opportunity, I know not at the same time, but for other commissioners to participate in this? I'm going to guess that there are probably other people up here that have a high interest in affordable housing or experience in the like what's happening now today, what's been happening over the past few years.
Well, because of the way that the state statute organizes the committee, we can only have one city commissioner on it at one time. Now, what we'll be doing, of course, is returning to city commission with a list of recommendations from this committee that the commission will then discuss and provide additional information and direction to us on.
Okay, I understand. At one time, what I guess I'm asking is there an opportunity to rotate, or how is that set that it's?
I can answer that a little bit.
Thank you.
So the state actually requires the appointed commissioner actually to attend training throughout the year and so forth. So there is an appointed person for that period. They go through the training, they attend the meetings and so forth. So, however, annually there could be a change to that as well.
But it's not something we keep annually. This committee, last time I.
Correct. So in the past, the state statutes required this this group to convene every 3 years. If the jurisdiction received $350,000 or more in state housing initiative partnership funding. So between that 3-year period and also the lower funding levels we've received, it's been since 2015 since we've convened this committee. And so, but in the fall legislative session, they just changed it that as long as we're receiving $350 or more, it has to happen annually. So if state funding holds out like it did this year for us, we will likely be back again doing this again each year going forward. It really just depends on that grant funding level.
Okay, I don't know. That's fine.
Okay. Next, Commissioner Smith.
I'm happy we're actually having this committee again to even get funded and be able to do this. So I really appreciate the call that when I made to you, Arrow, and you explained some of my questions, my hesitations a little bit. And I'm very appreciative to this. This really helped me out, and it showed me that y'all are doing a hell of a job to show me exactly what I was looking for. I really, really appreciate that, and I think this is a great group. And I look forward to it. So thank you very much, and keep it up.
Good. Thank you. Commissioner Gerard?
Yeah. First of all, I want to also thank you for this list. Not including myself in it, but I recognize a lot of these names here, a lot of these people, and it's really top quality people. And it gives me a lot of confidence in the great work that we'll do. I do want to clarify that there's a 1-year appointment to the committee, and then a new committee will be appointed. There might be some carryover, I don't know, but there'll be a rotation of people on the committee. So it's a 1 year and then somebody else from
Correct.
the commission, probably.
At this point, it's an ad hoc committee. If it looks like legislatively everything's going to hold, then we'll probably look at solidifying it more as a formalized committee. The difference between this committee and others on the city, like our finance advisory board is residents from the city, same with code board and so forth, is because of the categories that we have to fill, it defines the community as, in this general area. It does not have to be city residents. So we are going to do some research to, if this becomes a standing committee, on how some of the other jurisdictions that always get more than 350,000, how they what process they use to keep that ongoing for that. So.
Right. And my next point is that, of course, that we can begin, barring anything unforeseen in the future, because of the action that the legislature took this year, this funding will stay pretty consistent year after year after year, because they can't sweep these funds anymore. When they split up the Sadowski fund money, one of the concessions was, the SHIP money will continue to come at this level. So I'm very excited about that. That gives us, something that we can really plan on. So thank you.
And the plan is that the key word there, it's been a roller coaster, so it's been very difficult to plan. We were on again, off again with this committee even. We were expecting last year over $1 million and we got 0. So it makes it very difficult to figure out, but I think now looking forward, we can start planning longer term for this, yes.
Let's hope so.
Right. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Take a motion? Anybody would like to make a motion?
I move to approve appointment of Linda Kemp, Arlene Grasso, Stephen Beal, Sean Wilson, Angela Clute, Tom Shelley, Maria Cadeau, Lanice Scott, and Eric Gerard as members of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next up on the agenda, Resolution 2299.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
This item, this resolution authorizes the reimbursement of all costs incurred on the planning and initial cost related to the Parks Division building. This is permissive. In other words, the ordinance does not require any cost incurred to be funded by borrowing in the future. It just provides the flexibility to the City Commission. As you know, we'll probably be issuing bonds for the City Hall and the Parks Department building sometime in early 2022, probably towards the end of January. So work on the Parks building will be continuing, up until that time. And so it would be the city administration's intent to take any of the initial cost and reimburse them through the long-term borrowing at that time. This resolution is a requirement of the IRS code for tax-exempt borrowing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Resolution number 2299, a resolution of the City of Largo, Florida, establishing its intent to reimburse certain capital expenditures incurred in connection with acquisition, construction, and equipping of the city's proposed Parks, Recreation, and Arts Department building project with proceeds of a future tax-exempt financing or financings, providing certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Any discussion?
I'm happy to see it happening.
Yeah. Moving forward for sure.
Yeah. Let's approve resolution number 2299.
Second.
Almost got there, John. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next up is ordinance 2021-66.
Yes, this item is a first reading, authorizing the borrowing of money in an amount not to exceed $60 million for the City Hall project and also for the Parks Division project at Largo Central Park. Again, this does not authorize any particular borrowing at this time. It just authorizes the city to pursue borrowing options. Options will be brought back to the City Commission at a later date, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ordinance number 2021-66, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, authorizing pursuant to Section 5.06 of the City Charter, the borrowing of money through the issuance of bonds by the city in an aggregate amount not to exceed $60 million, providing for certain other matters in connection therewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this item?
I have no cards.
Commissioner Gerard?
Kim, you, in the memo here, we talk about different repayment scenarios, 30 years, 20 years, 25 years. I'm the kind of guy who likes to pay off debt really fast. Do you have any idea what, the budget and projections for the budget, what we could endure as far as paying this back?
Well, based on preliminary projections, a 20-year borrowing might be a little aggressive. 25 or 30 would probably fit into the budget quite well. We were anticipating just looking at the options. In other words, a longer borrowing might have a higher interest rate. So sometimes coming down in an amortization period doesn't really increase the payments that often or that much. So we obviously will fit this into the budget projections. And right now, we're just keeping options open.
Of course, when the bonds are issued, we'll also have to know what the repayment schedule is.
We are in the process right now of looking at hiring underwriters. So we're going to be asking them, underwriters are more familiar with the market. They know what the market conditions are and what the market's looking for as far as, going far out or staying a little shorter. So we'd be looking for their guidance along with our financial advisor to narrow down the alternatives.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I will take a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-66 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
There you go, John. We have a motion and a second.
Did I step on you, Commissioner?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will
I
be,
apologize.
Trying to give them that opportunity.
next up is ordinance number 2021-51.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Commission. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2021-51, amending Chapter 5 of the City of Largo Code of Ordinance to provide regulations for the commercial sale of dogs and cats within the city limits. At the October 8th, 2019 workshop, the City Commission discussed possible changes to the city's Code of Ordinance, Chapter 5, which covers animals concerning the regulation of commercial dogs and cats. On January 14th of 2020, at a second workshop session, staff presented additional information to the City Commission, and the Commission heard from citizens and business owners that may be affected by these regulations or changes. Fast forward to September 8th, 2020, City staff received comments regarding the proposed ordinance from the Pinellas County Attorney's Office, which represents Pinellas County Animal Services. Their comments indicated that none of the language proposed in the city ordinance was in conflict with their authority or would cause a preemptive issue if enacted as written. January 19th, 2021, the City Commission, on second reading of the proposed animal ordinance, the City Commission removed in its entirety the proposed Section 12 we're hearing today, as it relates to commercial sales of dogs and cats, and approved all the rest of the changes. The City Commission directed staff to conduct additional research and to hold a public discussion with the residents and the affected businesses, interested stakeholders, and staff. Based on the City Commission direction, research, and feedback, staff is now presenting an updated version of the commercial sales of dogs and cats portion of the ordinance for your consideration on first reading tonight. And per the City Commission's directions to staff over numerous meetings and hearings, the newest version includes changes related to the location of information posted on animal cages and additional language requiring the affected businesses to have present on-site for inspection for consumers a valid current health certificate from a licensed Florida veterinarian for all animals on the premises to be sold. While working on the proposed revision, staff also explored whether it would be feasible to require more extensive physical examinations than is required by the state. However, the development, implementation, and enforcement of such requirements was determined to be impractical for city staff. Additionally, the new proposed version also includes an option to grandfather existing pet stores who currently engage in the commercial sales of dogs and cats in the city. Any new pet stores would be banned from engaging in the commercial sales of dogs and cats after an approved effective date. As part of this process, if adopted, the ordinance will require that a corresponding footnote reference be added to the Comprehensive Development Code use tables to cross-reference these changes to the Chapter 5 Animal Codes. Staff is available to answer any questions.
Ordinance number 2021-51, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City of Largo Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 5 to enact regulations for the commercial sale of dogs and cats within the city, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards for this?
I have one card on this item. Alexandria Julian.
Appreciate you waiting so patiently out there. It was obviously
no.
not our typical.
You guys had a lot to talk about today, so good work.
Couldn't have picked a better meeting to come.
Yeah. So my name is Alexandria Julian. I'm here to discuss the pet retail sales ordinance. I want to thank each of you, should we choose to proceed with the regulation-based ordinance in front of you this evening, for believing in your small business owners and our right to operate our legal and longstanding business within the community. I know it's a community that we all love and care about very much. I have read through the ordinance, we all have, and it is fair in what it is asking of the business owners, and it covers the level of transparency that you were stating that you wanted. In regards to where the puppies were coming from and the proper documentation to verify that. So for the real meat of the ordinance, we are 100% certain that we can abide by the regulations that are outlined. The areas of concern that we have are in regards to the grandfathering section, so section C, specifically subsection 2A. As it reads, our understanding is that our store would now be worth $0, as the option to sell our business in the future would result in the ban of our business. I know that some of you are small business owners, and just like us, you cannot even imagine selling your business. However, I think that you can appreciate our concern in reading that our business that we've spent so much time, effort, and energy making successful would now be worthless, and not because we did anything wrong. I also would like to ask that you not allow in the same sentence the verbiage that we cannot move to a different location. There are things that can happen that are outside of our control, and as we lease our spaces that we're currently in, if something were to arise through an act of God or through a change in ownership of our lease space, by which we wouldn't be able or be offered to lease or renew our lease, we would be then closed down due to no fault of our own. This is a community that we're within, and in the event something like that occurred, we would like the option to be able to move. And then I would like to end by saying, whether you are for this ordinance or against it, we appreciate the job that you do very much. I never would have thought that our business that we started 26 years ago would end us up here, and so involved in government and seeing like the intricacies within it. You all know probably better than anyone else here that stories and words can get twisted, pictures can be misrepresented, and truth and lies get kind of welded together. With that being said, we've seen like a mere glimpse of that with the pet retail sales ordinances. But all we wanted to say really was that we're so grateful to live in a community where you guys put the work that you guys do into these ordinances, and take the time to consider both sides of the story. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say real quick for staff, I really want to say thank you for all the hard work that you guys have put in on this. I know, obviously, in your memo that you just read, there's been a lot of back and forth, and you guys have done a fantastic job of taking all of the things that we wanted to see and all the twists and turns that this thing's gone through over the past couple of years, and to getting to where it is today. So thank you very much for the staff for all the work that you guys have done. And especially, taking this back, going out to the community, working with the actual people who are involved in this, and bringing what the best ordinance that, I think you guys did a fantastic job of bringing back pretty much exactly what we had asked for. So, and working with those stakeholders. So thank you very much for that. So I know Commissioner Gerard had a question.
First of all, maybe Mr. Zimick can answer this. My reading of Section 2, subparagraph A, would the sale of this business to another corporation actually constitute a new business, and would it not allow that new business to conduct business in Largo? I would imagine they would actually be able to sell their business. They're not really, it's an ongoing business. It's just been sold.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure what the intent of that language was. And maybe Mr. Schofield could help us. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the drafting of this. I could read that as you do, Commissioner Gerard, and say it is referring to an additional pet store, not the sale of an existing pet store to a new corporation. It certainly does apply if somebody moves to a different location, but I would probably have to consult with Ms. Day, or maybe Ms. Schofield. Mr. Schofield knows what the intent of that language was. I don't know, but we can certainly also, with whatever the command and the desires of the commission are, we could clarify the language and maybe become a little bit more specific as to what the intent of that language is, depending upon the desires of the commission.
Okay, thank you. And we may want to amend that to make it clear. And my question, Mr. Schofield, is how many stores are there right now in the city that engage in the commercial sale of dogs and cats?
The original two that we started with.
Just the two?
Are still there. Sunshine Puppies and All About Puppies, which was represented here today.
Okay, I know there was a pet land down at Largo Mall, but I don't think they're there anymore.
They're unincorporated.
Largo Mall?
There's actually
Across the
five.
street, yeah,
There's
okay.
5 stores on Almerton Road that
Are not in the
sale
city.
of dogs and puppies. 2 of them are in the city. The other 3 are in the county.
Okay, great. And then a question for the folks from All About Puppies. It requires a current health certificate from a licensed Florida veterinarian for all the animals on the premises to be sold. While working on the proposed revision, staff also explored whether it would be feasible to require a more extensive physical examination, but apparently that's not practicable. So what type of an examination is done for this certificate? What does the veterinarian look at?
So it would be basically exactly what happens with your puppy or dog, whenever you go to the vet. So they do a full physical and a fecal as well. So that's where they're checking for their eyes, hips, heart, ears, knees, making sure that there's no infectious or contagious illness that's going on. So they look for if the puppy has a runny nose, any of that. And if the puppy does have anything that they've found, they can't sign off on health certificate. So the puppy then wouldn't be able to be for sale.
So what additional would be, so we're talking about, a more extensive examination. What else would go into that?
I think you would probably want to contact a veterinarian for that. But I don't think that there really is an established, that's what an examination on a dog is. It's kind of like if you were to go to the doctor and then you were like, well, we want to do more extensive. Well, is there a reason to do it? Is there something else going on with the puppy that's in question? It would be unnecessary to go any further. I think that's why it's the state requirement. It's the same thing whenever you bring dogs into the state as well. You want to make sure there's no intestinal parasites and no signs of illness present.
Do you look into things like blood disorders, doing a blood test, checking for levels in the blood?
If a puppy was having symptoms of something, wasn't gaining weight properly, something like that, then yes.
So if you had a puppy there in the store and you took a look and said, boy, he doesn't seem to be thriving, you would call the vet back. And what would happen to the certificate that the vet signed in the first place before you discovered that?
Well, we wouldn't be offering the puppy for sale. At that point, they would have an isolation record, which would basically be that the puppy is under veterinary watch until it is seen to be fit for sale.
And that's your standard operating procedure. What about the other pet
They're
store?
not represented here tonight.
And, all right, okay.
They were provided information about the meeting tonight and sent an email, but I got no response from them on that.
Okay. Would it be a good idea for us to insert, to amend that section to say, except in cases where an existing business sold to a new owner or something like that?
Yeah, so, I mean, personally, I'm in favor of, if this business, this company, corporation decides to sell to another corporation for the same business,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that because, I think that was the intent. Our intent was not to, obviously that you made a very valid point. I believe if we tell you can stay in business until you can't be in business anymore, and then your business is again essentially worthless. So there's, obviously, you don't run around in business trying to think about the date that you're going to sell that business, but it can happen, and you don't want. I'm not in favor of taking that opportunity away from anybody. So I would like to see it amended or at least clarified to show the intent of the commission is that at least the business can be sold.
Would it have to remain under the same name, same location?
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's something that we probably should have the discussion about up here. So when it comes to a business license for this business, does it specify that it's a pet store?
You're talking about the business tax receipt?
Yes.
Yes, not a license.
Sorry.
The business tax receipt would specify, they have to say what it's for in this case.
Right. So if they sold their business and then a new corporation came in and said, we're taking over, basically, we're going to have the same business, but it's under a new corporation, so they have to get a new BTR, business tax.
So if that facility, we'll use their example, if their facility has a allowable use for that type of a business, and a new business comes in and wants to do the same thing, basically they're picking up their name and they're going to use the same facility, then they would still have to have a certificate of occupancy. They'd probably still have to have a special inspection by the fire department. They'd have to obtain their business tax receipt, show their licensing, make sure they comply with all the state requirements. But it's my understanding, and I don't know if Alicia is still here from planning, but it's my understanding that they would be allowed to do that. There wouldn't be an issue with that, as long as it's a like for like. If there was a change of use on that location or something like that, then staff would have to look at that to make sure that's allowable.
So according to your understanding is the way the ordinance is written now, it wouldn't be any conflict.
My understanding of the original intent from many meetings with the commission is that at some point, and certainly some of the commissioners had stronger opinions on this, that at some point they didn't want this to happen anymore. That if they elected to sell to a different company under a different name, that would be in violation of the ordinance the way it's written. That was the intent. Now, if there's not a clarification or if the commission wants to change that, this is certainly the time to do that, and we'll do whatever you'd like. Sure. And we're certainly okay if they want to sell it, but if it's all about puppies today, but tomorrow it's, Tracy's puppies, and, same location, same everything else, is that okay? If it's a different name, or if, again, that lease runs out, we've now given them a business tax receipt to operate in the city of Largo, and their lease runs out, they can't get that same location, can they move down the street inside the city of Largo to a new location? Is that okay? If you're okay with it, we're okay with it.
I say no, but I know I'm a negative. So.
Well, let's address the first issue first. So, Mr. Zimmett, would, reading this ordinance, would you recommend a clarification that, All About Puppies could sell, and that wouldn't, that they could sell the business and the business could stay there?
I think if that's the commission's intent, I think we should clarify the language. But I do think I think the different location is a different issue, because the one thing that we're not talking about is what happens if they decide to move to a larger location. I mean, the whole idea of a grandfathering is that eventually they are going to go away, and they're going to come in compliance with the new ordinance. And so, typically when you allow grandfathering, you don't allow them to expand. Right. So if you're going to Now, if you're going to say that the existing stores are allowed to move to a different location, then we need to, I think we should consider addressing an expansion, that they can't get any bigger. Because obviously that defeats the purpose of the ordinance. If they double the size and sell double that many puppies, then they're running contrary to what the intent of the commission is, to eventually have everybody come into compliance with the ordinance. So I do want to differentiate those two items. Or in my mind, there's a difference between those two things.
So I would say this. My thoughts on this are I'm in favor of the businesses that is existing continuing to operate. Both businesses that we're talking about in this ordinance continue to operate, because I know a lot of the discussion, and I'm not trying to rehash any of this, but I know a lot of the discussion that we had prior to that kind of got us to this point here was, when we're talking about puppies versus, the breeding of puppies versus,
hobby breeders.
Should you adopt and whatever, your personal preference is. I would say this, that if tomorrow both of those businesses weren't here in the city of Largo, it's not going to affect the breeding situation that as you guys are what your thoughts are on that breeding is not going to change. The only thing that's going to happen is all the folks that were here in blue shirts until we took 3.5 hours to get here, we'll be out of a job. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to change. It's not going to stop breeding. It's not going to stop quote unquote puppy mills. It's not, any of that stuff is not going away. None of that stuff. It will not be affected by one iota. And the only thing that's going to happen is all of this affordable housing that we've been talking about for the last hour, is all of those folks there are going to need to be looking at affordable housing as well, because they're not going to have a job. So, that's my biggest concern. So when we talk about, are they allowed to stay in business for a couple extra years? Yeah, absolutely they are. It's a small business. They're participating in this community. They've been great actors over the last year and a half, or however long we've been talking about this and trying to be a participant in everything that we've done. I support them. I think they've done a great job, and it's a valid, viable small business in the city of Largo that we need to continue to have. So,
if I can just add on to that, Commissioner.
Sure.
When this all started, originally there was no grandfathering. The grandfathering really was added later into these discussions to give commission some options. We certainly know we have 4 options. We could do nothing. Currently, right now, they're being regulated by USDA, the state of Florida, Pinellas County Animal Services. We do have business regulations that we monitor them as far as business tax receipts and things of that nature. And we still have the approved ordinance recommendations that you approved last time as far as the rest of the animal ordinance is already in place and being used. The next one that we talked about was just the transparency. That's what the original conversation was, just to have some more transparency to make sure that the paperwork is jiving with the dogs, that somebody's looking at those on a more regular basis than maybe an annual inspection through the county, that we are putting eyes on this to try to assure that the residents that they're getting the product they're buying, because as we all know, these dogs they're purebred dogs for the most part. They're very expensive. We understand that. Anybody that's been in this business or has bought one of these dogs knows there's an investment to them. Later, we added the grandfathering as a discussion, and really that's where we're at today as a discussion. You could remove that whole grandfathering section and stick just with the transparency part of it and move forward with the ordinance, and that's where we could be there. And of course, the last one is changing everything and making this a total ban if you wanted to do that, which I don't know if most people want to support, but some might. But we do have 4 options still out there since this is the first reading. I did want to remind you of that transparency is where we really started this discussion with the original workshops in 19. And of grandfathering was added as an opportunity, I think, because we're trying to move away from having the commercial sales of dogs and cats in the city limits at some point, as Mr. Zimmett mentioned. And that was a way to do that. So the existing businesses were not put out of business. The staff that's working there are not put out of the job. But at some point, there would be an end game. And that's what the grandfathering discussion was about, if that helps at all.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
So I'm asking if this is workable language for that subsection A. So it says, for purposes of this subsection, new or additional pet store shall mean any pet store established by a different corporation or entity. Let's stop it right there. Would it make sense, Mr. Zimmett, to then add a statement that says, except that an existing pet store may sell that business to another entity so long as it continues to operate at its current location at the time of sale? Would that clarify things?
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you.
Really? Nobody's ever said that to me before.
I think because you were looking down reading.
Okay.
Here's my suggestion. If the commission wants to grandfather in the existing stores and allow them to sell their stores to another corporation that runs them, you just give us direction to clarify the language, and I'll take care of clarifying the language between now and the next reading.
I would go for that. Do we need a consensus on that, or a vote, or what?
We just need a motion as such.
Well, I move that we amend the ordinance to allow the current owner to sell its business to another entity so long as that business doesn't change its location. Does that make sense?
Is that
I
addressed?
second that.
Pardon me?
Commissioner Carroll seconded it.
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Finger has a question about
Is that
the,
addressing the part about their concern if they wanted to, so you can sell your business?
Yes, this would allow them to sell their
Right,
business.
but
They can't move.
but you can't move your business.
Well, we're not addressing that
we haven't
yet.
gotten
Yeah,
that far.
yeah.
We can,
That's, okay.
That's separate.
yeah, that'd be,
Okay.
yeah, so if we're gonna, if we decide to address that, we'll address that in a different
Okay.
motion. So we have a motion and a second to amend the ordinance, correct?
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the right page here, guys.
Same
So-
name, or are they allowed to change their name and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, they
no,
could
you're fine.
become,
You're good.
instead of all about puppies, somewhat about puppies.
I got it.
So we have a motion and a second on that, on the amendment.
Well,
Any other discussion?
I don't know, not till I looked down the way and saw Commissioner Hulk's eyebrows.
No, go ahead,
thinking-
no.
I know.
No, because part of me was thinking the same thing, kind of
Like-
probably is from a, because you don't have to change the name. A corporation can buy the company and keep the name the same. So by or the grandfathering of the wording or the selling, I'm okay with the selling, but where do we draw the line? Like,
Right.
we've been giving and giving, and we've really worked with this. Tracy's done an amazing job and has the patience of a saint over there with us, but he's come back with everything that we've asked for. So in the selling of the property or the business, you're selling a business, you're selling a name also. So, but a corporation can buy that, Gerard Corporation can buy it, but maintain the same name. So rather than leave that whole door open again for further discussion, because now it's got a different name, so is it a different business? Where if it remains all about puppies, then it's still that same business without being able to make any of the changes.
And, yes, and that also is just to the point that, I don't know at this point, maybe Attorney Zimmett had said that our intent has been to not
We don't want
endorse more.
We want to keep this one.
Right.
We want you to stay in business. We want you to be able to benefit from your business, retire from your business,
Yes.
sell your business if you want to. But
Yes.
But we don't want, I don't think we want people to be able to just come in, buy that, and then start
Circulate.
changing all the rules again, because now it's not all about puppies, which is,
Right.
I mean,
It could be a larger corporation that attempts to expand and they want to open a second location in the city.
Well, then they-
Well, there's
they
all kinds of
can't.
discussions that we need to address with that.
No, I think by allowing them, let me pull this ordinance back up. By allowing them to sell the business and I don't think changing the name of the store is going to be, if we want, we can, again, we're talking about location and size in a different item, but if a different company comes in, regardless of who the company is, and continues to do the same business in that store, then that, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, and I don't think the rules would change. They'd have to operate under the same
rules,
under the
everything.
same rules that we're establishing here.
But the overall intent, again, of the ordinance was to,
Yeah, so I think
Limit-
we're, right, so let's do this.
Stop.
We've got a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote on that, and then if that, we'll see what happens there.
Well, before we do, if I have one more, I would hate to see us pass an ordinance that would destroy the future value of this ongoing business. These people are business owners, and I don't care how long you think you're going to stay in business. In the back of your mind, as a business owner, you always think about your exit plan. And if we don't allow them to sell this business, the future value of their business just goes to zero.
how, can Attorney Zimmett, can you explain that? Are we, if we don't allow them to, I don't know, how can we not allow them to sell their business?
Because as the motion, and excuse me, Mr. Zimmerman, but as the ordinance is written, it could be interpreted that, because it specifically says, new or additional pet store shall mean any pet store established by a different corporation or entity or in a different location than those duly licensed and operating on the effective date of this article. No new or additional pet stores. So, and that specifically calls out anything other than what sits in her building right now, under the name that it is.
Then grandfathering, I mean, that's
That's
grandfathering. Why,
But yeah, right, understood. So again, we have a motion and a second. If you're not in favor of it, say
well, no, I'm asking for a further explanation from our attorneys to make sure that that's, because I thought earlier he had a suggestion of, because he read it if I'm correct, he was saying he read it and interpreted it differently than.
Okay, well, I was trying to say that it's not clear. The language that exists right now is not clear to me, what the intent was. And not being the drafter, I can't tell you what the intent was. But while I want to follow whatever the direction of the commission is, and we can clarify the language. But with regard to the motion that's on the floor, if I could just ask a question. So I would need to know the intent. Let's say that this store closes for whatever reason. And the store is closed, and then somebody comes in and reestablishes a store in the same exact location.
that's not the intent.
So that would be considered the store was abandoned. Once they've abandoned it,
No,
they
they're,
have other status.
Right, so the intent, it would be, in my understanding, of the intent is that if the current business, that the current corporation that owns the business right now, were to sell that business and they continue to operate in the same business, then that's okay. Now, if they were to leave and they're done with their business in the city of Largo, another business outside of.
Okay, so I want to follow up on what Commissioner Hoke was getting at. So there's a lot of ways to sell a business. You can sell the corporation, which means I own shares in John's Pet Store. I sell my shares to Commissioner Gerard. He now owns John's Pet Store. He can change the name of the pet store, but he owns that corporation. I can sell the assets to Commissioner Gerard, which means I'm selling him the dogs and the cages and whatever else I own inside and my lease. But I didn't sell them the corporation, I sold them my assets. So is that, I want to make sure that we properly, we don't have to bring this ordinance back 2 and 3 more times to get to the point that you guys are satisfied with the ordinance. So is that type of a transaction, would that be okay with the commission? That they're not?
Yes, in my
Okay. So the one difference then is if they abandon the site and somebody new comes in to establish a store, that would be considered a new store.
Right.
Is that fair?
What is currently being proposed as an amendment is that they could sell the store, let's say as is, and I buy it and make it Sam's Puppies, and I use all their crates and whatever else.
So
Is that okay? Because I think our intent from the very beginning has been no more of these stores.
I think under the motion that's on the floor, that's okay.
Right.
And I just want the commission to know, so that what staff's gonna have to do is, somebody opens up that store, changes the name or whatever, the staff is gonna ask for the documentation to see whether this store closed and a new store opened, or if they sold the store.
See, and so I think that's perpetuating what.
I want you to be aware, that's what staff will have to do to implement the ordinance. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when the business owner comes and complains to you that staff is asking for this private information about the sale of their store, you'll understand why.
Understood. All right, so,
Okay.
yes, sir, thank you very much for that explanation. So again, we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend, or to the ordinance. We can take a vote on that. I guess, Diane, can you poll the board?
Wait a minute.
Yes. One second, Diane. Let's, one more question.
Exactly what we're voting on.
It would amend the ordinance to allow the sale
Okay.
of their store to another puppy store. It could be Sam's Puppies tomorrow.
Correct.
Which is, what I was saying is not what we intended.
So, Diane, can you poll the board, please?
Commissioner Gerard? Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hulk?
Yes.
Commissioner Carroll?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith? No. Commissioner Fenger?
No.
Motion carries 4-2.
Thank you. So we have do we need to have any other discussion as far as anything else goes, or can we approve the ordinance as amended? Or not approve the ordinance as amended?
Yeah.
So the ordinance, discussion, or I will take a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-51 as amended on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and pull the board again. Diane?
Okay.
Please?
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hulk?
Yes.
Commissioner Carroll?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Commissioner Fenger?
No.
Commissioner Gerard?
Yes.
Motion carried 4-2.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. I know it's a lot of work.
That's,
No, and
no worries at all.
I hope you,
That is why we get paid the big bucks.
That's right. We signed up for this.
hopefully you understand I hope you understand where I was, at what I'm asking. Because, I think we were in favor of, I'm not in favor of me owning your store tomorrow, because then we're perpetuating
I don't
what.
like the idea of it either, it's just,
All right. So,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you all very much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, next up is ordinance 2021-53.
We're going to try to make this one a little easier.
Let's do that, please.
Okay, this is a first reading of ordinance number 2021-53, amending section 18.2 of the Comprehensive Development Code to establish the community standards, managers' duties and responsibilities regarding the property maintenance code. The proposed amendment to the city's Comprehensive Development Code, ordinance number 2021-53, is to establish the Community Standards Division's duties and responsibilities as they relate to the property maintenance code in the CDC, Chapter 18.2. In 2017, with the Commission's directions, the Code Enforcement Division was created inside Community Development Department. Prior to that, there was no standalone division, and the code officers worked under the police chief and then the building official. When the new Code Enforcement Division was created in 2017, the CDC was not updated to reflect the new division and its duties and responsibilities to enforce the property maintenance code. As currently written in the CDC, the building official is solely responsible for enforcing the property maintenance code. However, historically, these types of violations are addressed to the code enforcement, but not the building inspectors. The Community Standards Division is currently working under an authorization memorandum from the building official in an effort to perform their duties. In order for the City of Largo to properly transfer property maintenance, enforcement duties, and specified shared responsibilities between the building official and the Community Standards Manager, the Community Development Department is proposing to amend Section 18.2 to reflect these changes. On June 3rd, 2021, the Planning Board reviewed the proposed amendment and approved these changes to the CDC. The staff is available to answer any questions.
Ordinance number 2021-53, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending Section 18.2 of the City of Largo Comprehensive Development Code to establish a community standards manager's duties and responsibilities regarding the property maintenance code, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Sorry, do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Good deal. Do we have any comment?
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-53 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Tracy. Next up is ordinance number 2021-65.
Good evening again. Ordinance 2021-65 is the first reading of a budget amendment in the amount of $828,000 within the Community Development Department's Community Development Block Grant Fund. This item is similar to budget amendments we often bring in the summer of each year. At the beginning of the year, we don't always know exactly what our revenues and their associated expenditures will be for our housing grant programs due to sometimes the last-minute nature of program revenues from property sales, or in this case, from some of our funders. So this budget amendment is just reflecting some of the additional COVID relief funding that we received and ensures that we have the budget appropriation to encumber those funds for some of the subrecipient contracts that came before the commission in June and July. So this is our true-up budget amendment to make sure the CDBG fund is accurately reflecting our revenues for the year so we can execute those contracts. Staff's available for any questions.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2021-65, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by resolution number 2279 by appropriating revenues and expenditures in the amount of $828,000 within the Community Development Department Community Development Block Grant Fund for additional program expenditures, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards for this item?
I have no cards.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Just a typo if I get passed over before this happens. The memo says 2020, it's supposed to be 2021. So just to let you know. Well, I was afraid someone was going to make the motion before I would be. So.
Where?
Down where it says potential motion, it says 2020-65 on the motion. Am I reading it wrong?
No, you're not.
That's a typo.
Okay. No problem.
Oh, yeah.
So are you?
So I'll move if no one has comments. So there.
Do it.
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-65 on first reading and schedule second reading and public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 2021-67.
Good evening. This is a budget amendment within the Engineering Services Department's local option sales tax fund for $50,000 for stormwater repairs. This is necessitated by that repair that has become apparent on West Bay Drive near Ulmer Park. It is a relatively small amount for this budget amendment. In the Engineering Services Department budget, local option sales tax or penny for Pinellas money is generally used on an all or nothing basis for capital projects, and so this year we expect them to use all of their existing budgeted funds, which doesn't leave any flexibility for an unforeseen repair like this. So this is going to allow them to purchase some of the materials to get started on that repair, and then there will be an item at the work session next week on the budget reconciliation list, as the memo notes, in the amount of about $550,000 for the actual construction work to complete the repair on that pipe in the next few months. Staff's available for questions.
Ordinance number 2021-67, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by resolution number 2279 by appropriating revenues and expenditures in the amount of $50,000 within the Engineering Services Department local option sales tax fund for stormwater pipe repair, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Commissioner Gerard?
Will, this might not be for you, it might be for the Mr. Schubert. As part of this repair, is there going to be an inspection for the rest of the pipe? I know you can't inspect the whole thing, but within the general area, we can take a look at its condition.
Yeah, there's two aspects to that. First of all, yes, our inspectors have looked at the pipe, and we are proposing to replace approximately 175 linear feet of the pipe. Mm-hmm. So that's more than what's apparent driving by. So they found there's other soft spots in the top of the pipe in that run. The second thing they're going to be doing is that several years ago, after that pipe was initially installed, some portions of the pipe in the downtown area were relined. There's some portions that were not relined. So Engineering Services will be proposing a future project in the CIP to line the remainder of the pipe in the downtown that is not already lined.
Any idea when that might come up in the CIP? Is that in year 1 of the new or in year 5 of the new?
I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah. I like asking unfair questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Curiosity, this pipe was kind of dictated to us by DOT, correct?
Correct.
Why the hell are we paying for it all?
Well, because at this point, that was, approximately 20 years ago, and DOT is not going to reimburse us. They did. My recollection is they did pay for the lining of some of the pipe that was lined many years ago. But at this point, the pipe is ours, and it's our responsibility.
Bullshit.
Pardon me?
Never mind. Also, this is 2020 also, so.
Good thing you're here.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Sorry, we'll take it out of your next week's pay. Is that a motion, Commissioner Smith?
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-67 on first reading, schedule second reading, public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Yes.
May I ask that on this last item here that we invite Commissioner Carroll to make the motion, whatever it might be?
We can absolutely. Completely up to Commissioner Carroll, but you can ask
if you'd like to.
We'll give them the.
I'm not sure I have the breath for it. I really don't.
So, speaking of this next item is ordinance number 2021-70.
Yes, so this is our final budget amendment this evening. This is just sort of an administrative accounting cleanup item. As we mentioned when we looked over the fund projections at the budget work session, you saw an encumbrance, but not a budget for this year. This was just an error on the staff side. We closed a purchase order before the end of the fiscal year that should have carried over the budget appropriation into this year, and it was reopened after it crossed the fiscal year. So this is related to the Workday ERP project. This is the part of the final encumbrance that we initially encumbered for the full project. So it will be paid and liquidated and closed out, and that fund will show a nearly zero balance. We'll return some of the interest to the original source funds. So this isn't new money. This is just the appropriation that should have carried over from last fiscal year but did not.
Ordinance number 2021-70, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget adopted by Resolution 2279 by appropriating expenditures in the amount of $700,000 within the Information Technology Department Enterprise Technology Capital Projects Fund budget, providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this item?
I do not.
If there's no discussion, Commissioner Carroll would love to make a motion.
Sure, I'll give it a try. I noticed that it says 2021 also. I move to approve ordinance number 2021-70 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on September 7th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all very, very much for a great meeting. Items from Attorney Zimmett.
Yes, I just want to go back to a question that Commissioner Finger asked. She asked me about the Privacy Act that was referenced by the anonymous emailer. So I had a chance to look at that online, and that only applies to federal agencies, federal government agencies. It's a federal statute. That's why I never heard of it, and it doesn't apply to the city. So just wanted to add that to my answer, my earlier answer. Otherwise, I've had enough to say tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hulk?
I just want to just express a little bit my disappointment in the loss of Joan Byrne from our directors. Joan, you've done an amazing job over the last 22 plus years. I thank you for everything that you've done for our city, because there's not a corner of our city that we can't look at and not think of you. And you should be proud of everything that you've done for us. And hold your head up high and enjoy your retirement, because you've worked hard for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll?
Nothing except to say thank you for allowing me to participate remotely. Hypothetically, there's this couple I know, and they both were fully vaccinated, and both of them tested positive, and they're under quarantine. So doing better, but not quite there yet. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you for joining us, and hope you feel better soon.
Thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
Mine kind of with the sentiments that Commissioner Hulk said about Joan. I'm really disappointed. And I'll get, Henry, if you're going to talk a little bit, if you are, I think the process was really poor. From what I saw as a commissioner, I would have liked a little bit more heads up. I feel, and I don't know all the background of the disciplinary talk. If there was, it doesn't sound from some, there's concern on that one. I did not like getting the email from the public that everybody got at one time. I thought that was a whack in the face to what phone calls I got. And I think for someone who's been here for that amount of time, we should have done it a little bit more graceful of how it is. I may not agree, and we butted heads, Director Byrne and I, on a few things. The basketball court was one of my pet peeves. But as someone who's also a city employee of another city, I thought there could have been a little bit more taste to how we handled that situation. And I also did not like that it happened while we're talking about Recreation Parks and Arcs Month. To me, that was kind of a slap in our city's face a little bit to have that happen in the way it did. So I hope maybe if you provide any more, if you want to, that's up to you. It could have been handled a lot differently, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Finger?
Thank you. On that same tone, I would ask if, since Attorney Zimmett, I had a few questions about comments that were made this evening. If that is appropriate, he said not appropriate to discuss up here, but if anyone else on the dais is interested, could we have a meeting before or after one of our meetings to discuss,
We can't have a closed-door session on this since there's, at this time.
It's, okay.
So any discussion either needs to be individually or in a public meeting.
So ask your questions now. That's the way I put it.
Well, my question was, what is the process of the independent investigation is what was brought up?
I don't know what you mean by the process. This commission has the authority to conduct an investigation. If you want to conduct an investigation into the city manager's termination of Ms. Byrne, you can conduct an investigation into that.
Okay. I guess that's up to commission discussion.
This is what the charter says. The city commission may make investigations into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any city department or office. And for this purpose may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, take testimony, and require the production of evidence.
Okay. I guess that takes other commissioners' opinions to do so as well.
How
Go
about we
ahead.
do this? Henry, are you going to talk about any of this?
Out of respect for Ms. Byrne, I would prefer not to have a public discussion to get into more and more details surrounding why I made the decision I did. I'll be very happy to discuss this with you all in more detail individually.
I understand and can respect that. I guess it's just it's already become very public. So, I don't know.
One side of it's been very public.
If you know more, okay. I don't know what else. Yeah.
All right, anything else, Commissioner?
No, I don't know what else. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gerard?
That's all comments.
I understand that there might be some concern. I've known Joan myself for many, many years. But we have a city manager who's responsible to the city, and he has certain authority, and he's going to make some decisions, and we may not like them. But unless it's something that's that's harmful or drastic, I'm going to support his action. That's why we hire him. I think he does an outstanding job, and every now and then we may say, geez, I wish he hadn't done it that way, but I still think he does an outstanding job, and I'm going to back him on this. What I would like to ask also, first of all, I'd like to announce that the Largo Public Library is going to be having another vaccination opportunity this coming Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I understand there are 2 different types of vaccine that might be available. Please, 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 if you haven't been vaccinated, for all the reasons that we hear about all the time, please go get vaccinated. It could save your life. It could save the life of a loved one. It might even save the life of a total stranger, but, it's certainly worth it. Along those lines, I'm wondering if the city manager and city attorney can look into the feasibility of the city requiring everyone who enters a city facility to wear a mask. I'm also asking that we investigate, as many businesses have done, whether we can require city employees to either be vaccinated or, if not, to be tested regularly. I'd just like to know what is our ability to do this? And then, once we know what our ability is, we can discuss whether it makes sense. And I can make a speech about that, but I've talked too much tonight already.
So do you want you want them to gather some information on that and bring it back to the commission?
Sure. Or get it to us, get it to us in a memo, or maybe even throw it onto the workshop session. That's, next week, but I would
We can do a
certainly as
memo.
soon as possible.
Did I hear you correct? So whether we can require anybody entering a city facility to wear a mask,
Right?
and then what was the second part?
And also, can we require city employees to either be vaccinated, or if not vaccinated, be tested regularly?
Okay.
Are we requiring the employees to wear masks again?
Yes, we are. Effective tomorrow morning, we are issuing new guidance to our employees that's already gone out, saying that they need to wear a mask, except when they're in like a private space by themselves, whether that's, an office or a workstation, or working outside by themselves. We've also restricted the size of meetings and reemphasized social distancing. And, we continue to encourage people to be vaccinated.
Did you have anything else, Commissioner Gerard?
No, that's plenty.
Okay, thank you. So for me, I just wanted to first of all say thank you to everybody. Obviously, we've been here for going on 4 hours. Good job. Obviously, a lot of conversation. Some of it a little bit more contentious than it probably should have been. And I apologize to Commissioner Holtz specifically. This group does a fantastic job. So I really appreciate all the hard work that you all put in here tonight. Everybody, the staff that has wisely gone home already. So thank you all for that. Now, I just really quickly, I want to address some of the comments that were made by the residents earlier in regards to Joan, and some of the comments I've heard this evening up here as well. First of all, I fully support Henry's decision. I think that the city of Largo, over the last several years, has directly and expressly changed the culture that we're trying to have here in the city of Largo. And from my understanding, and it's not just from Henry, it's from a lot of the conversations I have with the members of the ELT as well as a lot of members up and down and every level of staff here at the city of Largo, that that maybe that Joan was not specifically aligned with that. And again, I respect Joan, absolutely. I think she's done a great job. Our parks are fantastic. I didn't agree with her on some some of the maybe the focus of parks and a couple of things. That's that's to be expected. We're not always going to agree with everything, but I do believe though that Henry has taken the direction from this commission and has instructed his staff and to follow the policies and the direction that this commission has asked him to go in. So I absolutely respect the fact that he made a decision. It obviously wasn't popular with everybody, and we're well aware of what that's like, right? We always, every day, are up here making decisions that aren't popular with everybody. And those are the hard decisions that we have to make, and I can appreciate that Henry was able to make that decision. I fully believe that Krista Pincence is going to be able to hold that position down for a little while until we find somebody that is able to take that position, whether it's her or somebody else. The city of Largo is in a great spot. I don't think we've ever been in a better position, and I really look forward to the way we're heading. And again, in my conversations with literally all levels of staff here at the city of Largo, it's overwhelmingly, you know, the attitude towards what is, the direction that we're going is great. Again, not every decision is going to be popular with everybody, but that's why we put on our big boy pants and we make the decisions that we big girl pants, excuse me, not to separate anybody out. You know, so we have to make those decisions. We hope, you know, that Henry is able to make those decisions, and I believe he, you know, had made a tough decision, and you know, we're going to move forward better than ever. So thank you. If nothing else, that's all I had, and except for Mr. Schubert, if you have any comments.
Commissioner Carroll, did he have anything?
Commissioner Carroll, I called on earlier and was quiet, living the dream.
I just have 2 items this evening. The first one is a statement that Florida statutes requires me to make regarding an upcoming public hearing that's going to be scheduled before the City Commission. A public hearing will be held on August 17, 2021 at 6 p.m. at Largo City Hall, whereby the City Commission will consider for first reading Resolution Number 2300, designating a new State of Florida brownfield area in the City of Largo located at 14775 62nd Street North and 6100 150th Avenue, located north of Mears Court, east of 62nd Street North, south of 150th Avenue North, and west of Sunset Street. The purpose of this announcement is to meet the requirements of Section 376.80, and then the rest of this is in parentheses, 1C4B, Florida statutes. For further questions, please contact the Economic Development Division at 727-586-7360. Of course, that's an item that will come to before the City Commission for consideration and possible action. The second thing I wanted to make comment on was, as you're all aware, my predecessor as City Manager, Matt Craig, and his wife Shirley both passed away in the past week. I have been in communication with the funeral director that's going to be handling the arrangements, and once I have some information on that, which hopefully will be in the next day or two, I will obviously share it with the City Commission. And that's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you. And yeah, that's very unfortunate to hear. I was upset to hear, first of all, about Shirley the other day, and then today about Mac. That's, you know.
Condolences and prayers to their families.
Yeah, absolutely. Mac served this city very well for a long time. And we're all, I'm sure, sorry to see or hear the news that we heard today. So it's very unfortunate. If there's anything else, if there's nothing else.
Diane.
Excuse me?
Diane.
Oh, yeah, Diane, do we have any action items?
Two from Commissioner Gerard, that staff determine the feasibility of requiring everyone entering a city facility to wear a mask, and also the feasibility of requiring employees to either get vaccinated or tested regularly.
That's it. Great. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.